Hello and welcome back to the penultimate bracket for round one. We have two left of round one, which yeah, wow.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a
The
minute.
penultimate before the.
Then we start going through again.
Yeah. Almost
Yeah.
Start revisiting. Taylor, how are you?
I'm gonna pass on that question.
It's been a week.
It's been a week, and it's I don't even know what day it is.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. It's been a week and it's Monday, and I'm gonna pass on the "How are you?" question.
Mara, how are you?
It's Tuesday. I'm gonna yield the rest of my time.
Adam, Marisol, how are you guys?
Yeah. Is it? What is it?
It's Monday, but it's Tuesday.
It is Monday for us.
Happy Mother's Day.
It's Monday night for us. Yeah. It's still Mother's Day.
Happy
for us.
Mother's Day to everyone on the panel, all you moms, and especially you,
cat
Jacob,
moms count?
Mama Blunden. Yes, yeah.
Yo.
Oh God. Well,
He's the mother of all our nightmares. That's
basically,
Yes,
yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Before we do start, we do want to shout out POV. Congratulations.
Certain point of view. POV.
Congratulations on your final episode.
Final episode.
It's happening literally right now. So we are aware that it's happening. We just literally had no other time that we could do this. So congratulations. And
The end of an era.
it is very much an end of an era, but we did want to give you a shout out before the murdering begins. So
Start off on a pleasant note, and then just
all right, let's start off with our first one.
All right, let's go.
Silver Linings Playbook versus Dunkirk. All right, Marisol, I'm going to start with you.
Oh,
seem-
okay.
You look like it was like okay.
No, it's just we just had Silver Linings on before we hopped on here.
We both seen it before.
Yeah,
but yeah.
we were just because it's just been a minute since I've seen it, and I was like, I want to refresh on Silver Linings Playbook like before we do the bracket show, so we just put it on, and we're watching some of it. Yeah. Oh, I want to pick a Philly movie here because like go Birds and go Philly and go Silver Linings Playbook, and even just rewatching some of it now. I, always welcome movies about mental illness, and Silver Linings Playbook is special for that. And it's much more confrontational than I remembered it being. It is from like the beginning. It is just, this is no hand holding. This is just an unapologetic movie about people, about hurt people, not holding back with each other, trying to put each other to better places, as painfully as that might be. And the performances are all freaking wonderful in it. Most of all, Jennifer Lawrence. She's wonderful. Robert De Niro is wonderful. Jackie Weaver. Everybody, the cast elevates this movie so much, even over its more like prickly and more aggressive spots. The movie's great. Dunkirk is astounding. I mean, Dunkirk is especially, I don't think this movie even loses its luster, even if you don't see it in a theater, but is especially astounding in a theater. I think it's probably the most technically impressive war film of the 2010s. And I love the way Christopher Nolan and his obsession with time applies it in three very different arcs, but all relative to each other, to tell a story about a really harrowing point in World War I. And I like the anonymity of Dunkirk a little bit. The anonymity of all these young soldiers. I think that's a strength of the movie. And it sticks with me. I think it's a technical marvel. Two wildly different movies, but I both think worth it in their own right. Ooh. Which one I think is more of a home run for me? Ooh. I'm going to pick Dunkirk. I'm going to portray my hometown and Philly. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to say Dunkirk.
I've been wrestling with this one all week as well, because I'm like, I love both of these films. I really do love these movies. I think both of them are fantastic films. You're right. Silver Linings Playbook is a movie. It's a movie about hurt people, and I don't think there quite enough people understand where Robert De Niro was in 2012 when this came out, of like how bottom of the barrel his career had gotten, of just like, oh God. And he comes out with this and it's like, oh yep, man still got it. Man still got the ability to just come out and be this type of character. And I think Bradley Cooper is underrated in this, but you said it. Jennifer Lawrence is incredible in this movie. I love Jennifer Lawrence's performance a lot. But man, Dunkirk. Dunkirk is so good. Dunkirk is just such a visceral and overwhelming experience of a war film. And I really love that. I love how I for a Nolan movie, how heartfelt it is, and how it has like this element of humanity and just an emotionality to it that isn't really in any of his other movies, and that's something I really connect with a lot with this one. So I'm with you. I'm gonna go Dunkirk. Mara.
Dunkirk was a movie that I was really careful not to talk about with people when it came out. Because technically it is incredibly impressive. There's no denying that, but I can't separate the fact that I found his remarks about the movie to be really personally insulting. Like, you can't discuss how it's not about, like, that the people themselves are not important, and then dedicate your movie to the people, and then act really excited about that, and then like have people feel feelings about it. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that they're unimportant and then dedicate the movie to them. Like, as a person that's like served, you can't just say soldiers and like the point that they're anonymous and the point that they were, just like this amorphous blob of death, especially in that war where they just like threw people at the war to die over and over again, that's the whole point of it. And that that the senselessness of it is the whole point, except they were so important. Can't have your cake and eat it too. I can't separate my feelings about that from the movie. And also, the use of time in that movie doesn't quite work for me. The use of time in that movie walked so that way Oppenheimer could run for me. So I can't with it. I can't revisit it. I don't find it enjoyable in any way. Technically, I think it's very beautiful to behold, but I can't with it. And it sucks because Nolan's one of my favorite directors. But on the other hand, from a personal standpoint, Silver Linings Playbook is, I rallied hard for this movie. I suffer from mental illness, and one of my favorite conversations ever in a film is when they are sitting at the dinner table at the conversation about like different drugs, and like, oh, you've been on this, oh my God, this drug and these side effects. Like, oh, what about this drug? This drug. I was like, this is the most, like, yes, I've had this conversation with other people that struggle with like anxiety, depression, PTSD, like things where you might have to go through round after round after round after round of trying to find what works for you, and the struggle with how much that sucks, because it is a struggle, and anyone that's ever been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not fun, and you feel weird, and it wrecks your body, and it messes with your brain chemistry, and just like how strange that bonding is, and how instantaneously they capture that in a conversation, and how much you can endear yourself to one another by a common struggle and the struggle of mental illness. And also, I think that they were really delicate about the balance between showing Bradley Cooper's incidents with violence not being hey, mentally ill people are violent, because that is something that movies and TV really love to do. And correlating mental illness to violence is something that I take really seriously, because most commonly mentally ill persons are victims of violence rather than perpetrators of violence. And I feel like they threaded that needle and walked that tightrope very, very carefully. Yeah, I think that movie's super sweet. I've revisited it many times. It's one of my listen to the plane and fall asleep while I'm on drugs movies. So I probably know the dialogue in it better than I should. So for me, this is hands down Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I cannot get through Dunkirk. I have tried 3 times to get through Dunkirk, and I just can't do it. Maybe one day I'll get there. I get a little bit further every time. So I go in like 10-minute increments of like how much further into. I think I've seen the first like half an hour maybe at this point. Yeah, so can't get through Dunkirk. And I've seen Silver Linings Playbook once, but I do remember enjoying Silver Linings Playbook, so that's where we're gonna go.
All right, Adam, you have the deciding vote.
I vote for 1995's Casper.
Agreed. Approved.
All-time Bill Pullman performance.
Yes!
We're not in that bracket yet. Wishful thinking. No, these are really hard to compare for me. You know, I like these movies on very different levels, and I engage with them differently. And I think Dunkirk is as respectable a Nolan outing on a technical level as we've seen. One thing I appreciated just on an objective level is how the runtime, because it was a long decade for Christopher. You know, a lot of big, long movies. And I appreciated the brevity of Dunkirk and the focus of Dunkirk. And to be fair, I'll own up to the fact that like I wasn't as aware of a lot of things Mara pointed out about what Nolan said about the movie at the time. But I'll also admit I checked out on the movie when it came out. I didn't see it in theaters, and that was something I missed out on, because I think seeing it on a big screen would have been great. But even on a small screen, I appreciated the way it was constructed. And I did watch it with Darkest Hour like the same week, because I hadn't seen either that year. So I was like, why not? Why not watch them in close proximity? And they paired together in an interesting way. And rewatching Silver Linings Playbook, you know, I've seen the movie the better part of 2 times overall. This is technically the 3rd, and the performances always stand out to me. And I also think when it comes to the work of David O. Russell, I think this is like easily one of his strongest movies. You compare this to something like, for me, like American Hustle, which I find very, very hollow. I find it to be a presentation of historical events with a lot of great costumes, but Silver Linings Playbook is really human and relatable, and I like the performances a lot. And I think it's directed with, you know, some tact, which isn't always his strong suit. So I'm really torn on this. I think Dunkirk is really, really strong on a lot of levels. But I honestly think there's more to unpack with Silver Linings Playbook going into the bracket going forward. And Christopher Nolan gets a lot of love, and it's with all due respect, but I will vote for Silver Linings Playbook.
All right. Well, with that, Silver Linings Playbook makes it through, and Dunkirk has been eliminated.
Casper too. Good job. Yeah.
Thank Casper. Yeah.
3 years away from Casper. All right. Next up, Adam, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to let you have your love. The Babadook versus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a movie that has grown on me. I've seen it a few times, and when I first saw it, I was like, all right. You know, that's how it is with a lot of Tarantino movies in this decade for me. The initial outing is a little bit like, just get a feel for it, and then, you know, subsequent viewings sometimes enhance. And for the most part, that's been my experience with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I enjoy Leo's performance, but I really like Brad Pitt's performance. Really enjoy a lot of the supporting players as well. But honestly, it feels like as strong as the presentation is of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is, I find it to be almost an exercise in wandering around in the past, which in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But I didn't walk away gleaning as much perspective on the decade that I did when I watched something like Inglourious Bastards, which really deconstructed a lot of historical events in an incredibly bizarre way that I think, had some meaning behind it. I'm not saying Once Upon a Time in Hollywood doesn't have meaning. I think it does on a lot of levels. I think it's also very entertaining and fun, like a lot of Tarantino movies are. I genuinely enjoy several scenes in it. But when it comes to the Babadook, I think this is a movie that continues to be celebrated because it's, hey, have some pride. This is a patriotic moment for you, Jacob. You should be very proud of the Babadook. He should be on your flag. I really, really love this movie because it works on a million different levels. I also love the way it looks. I love the way you can't trust the way you're seeing things and how the Babadook really put its stamp on horror in the mid 2010s rather. And you saw its influence later. And in my opinion, in something like Hereditary, which is in no way derivative of the Babadook, but I think kind of is the heir apparent to some of the way you deal with traumatic horror and generational trauma and all these kinds of things. And I'm going to hold back a little bit so I don't, turn into an essayist over it. But I just want to say, like, the Babadook is such a strong movie that explores what it means to be a parent, what it means to be a single parent, what it means to be a parent of a difficult child or any child. And I appreciate that the loss of the father isn't the focal point. So many other horror movies are about, like, is the dad going to show up in the afterlife? Are we going to reconnect with his spirit? It's about the struggle of her mother and her child, and what the Babadook, what it represents is open to so much interpretation. And that's why I love revisiting the film, because I get more out of it every single time. The fact that the Babadook emerged as a queer icon is just a bonus, and I completely support it. I have the cool limited edition rainbow edition. Hey, Shout Factory, they put that out. It's up there somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Oh, that she pulled down my Herzog set just because she wanted. Yeah. Okay.
Here's your cool little Babadook. Shut up.
Oh, yeah. So I vote for the Babadook time and time again. I think Once Upon a Time is very cool, very fun, but the Babadook has much more meaning to me personally, and I really love this movie. So there you go. Admire.
Cool.
Is that me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that you started with Adam, because he really did sum up my thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I do really, really like the film, and Brad Pitt, just, he's the part for me that I just love so much. I never thought I would love someone that killed his wife just as much as I do. But I really do. And I'm glad he got his acting Oscar finally too, because I mean, he's had some really great performances, but I'm glad he got that award. But man, I mean, if it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. Plus, I mean, who doesn't want that as a house pet? You know, I want one. But I mean, he went into the gritty detail so well. And I will say, God, that movie is so well cast, because I fucking hate that kid. I want to slap that child. And I mean, that is a great child actor, because I'm sure that the real human child is a delightful, lovely little human being who's now a pubescent human being. But like, I really fucking hate that kid. Like, I would not be able to parent that child. And I think that translates so well into the movie, because that's part of the struggle, is kids are not always easy. As Adam said, I myself am not a parent. I am a really cool aunt, but I'm not a parent. But I mean, we've all had grief in our lives in different ways. We just haven't experienced like that kind of grief. But I also think that in a way, it does make it relatable enough for us to understand, you know, grief, and just find empathy there and sympathy in our own ways. So yeah, I think it finds universality, even though it is a really specific type of situation. So I think it's a really visionary kind of a horror movie, and it's both singular and universal at the same time. So way to go, Babadook.
Tell.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I haven't seen the Babadook. Unsurprising to nobody. Like nobody is
A horror
surprised by
movie
that.
and you haven't seen it? Yeah.
So I will talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It is a movie that has grown on me every time that I've watched it, because I remember watching it the first time and just not knowing really how I felt about it. Especially since half of my brain was like, I better not miss this flight that we've suddenly got to get to in 5 minutes from the ArcLight to LAX. Like, that's a great idea. But yeah, it grows on me every time I watch it. The performances are really great. I love that final climax fight where Brad Pitt's just beating the shit out of those kids. Like, hell yeah, love that. Great confrontation, great scene. Like, I just think there's a lot of really standout scenes and a lot of standout moments. And I do enjoy watching it now more than I have in the past. I don't think it's a movie where I would look at it and be like, oh, that's just like really great, and I just like am in the mood to sit down and watch it, but I enjoy it when I do watch it. So I will vote for it just because I haven't seen the other choice and because I do like it. But that's, it's a good movie. It's a good movie,
Marisol?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add to these to the what you and Mara said about the Babadook. Like, it really, I love Jennifer Kent's voice as a filmmaker. I just love this coupled with the Nightingale or follow up. I just think she just really taps into a really, really, really dark side. She's like uncovering the underside of this rock of some of the darkest places in our psyche and our emotions and our pasts. And she uses those as like the landscape for really, really emotional, suspenseful, horrific storytelling, which I think is really, really cool. And it's been a while since I've rewatched The Babadook, but it did leave a big impression on me. Very effective. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you guys no stranger to how I feel about 2010's Tarantino. I do also want to rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because it's an easily enjoyable film. I just feel like this capped off a decade of him where I feel like he's just become so, I felt him saying a little bit less with his films and just kind of resting on just having you bask in like, look how well he can construct an entertaining film. Like, look how well he can make you want to linger in his films rather than
sandbox.
Yeah. Like how long can I keep somebody just hanging out in my sandbox, And I think he's become a little more pedestrian with that rather than, and it gets kind of muddled and a little unimpactful, like what he's actually really trying to say. And I have my own take on the whole seeing Sharon Tate, excuse me, in the whole movie rather than the projection of her, this projection of her rather than her actually being a character in the movie is just, I think, an odd choice. But an odd choice, especially in a movie about undoing a woman's murder where the coolest character in the movie is a guy who murders his wife. I feel like that's a weird, like, I'm like, what's the end game with that? What are you saying with that? But it doesn't matter because I'm definitely choosing the Babadook. But I do want to rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I've made my feelings known about 2010's Tarantino as well. How Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's a movie I've watched once. I was very much, that was okay. I think it's way too self-indulgent, but I am going to also go with the Babadook. So yeah, with that, the Babadook does move on. Next up, The Big Short versus Sinister. All right, as the finance bro here, I am.
Come on, crypto douche, let's go. Yeah.
Ironically, I've never bought crypto. I never have and never will. I really love this movie. I like The Big Short. I think it is the only. I think it is such a really unique and fantastic approach to telling what would otherwise be a complicated story, but also doesn't just get muddled in the finance world of it all. It actually finds the humanity of this was the impact. I think one of the most powerful scenes in the 2010s is Brad Pitt's speech to the kids when they've just made the big bet, and they did what no one else did, which was they doubled down, and he just goes and he has that line of, you just bet against the American economy, and people lose houses, people lose jobs, people die, and it's one of the most just hard hitting and impactful moments of you're supporting these guys who bet against the American economy because they saw what was coming, but it also makes you realize just what that actual impact was. I think it's the only one that Adam McKay has really done really well with this as well. I'm not a massive fan of his other two movies that are in this style, and the ripoffs that have come since. Bombshell was one that tried to do this sort of style and really didn't work for me at all. But for what Big Short actually does, I think it tells an extremely complex story in an approachable and easy to understand and also entertaining way that I'm going to go with Big Short. I think it is endlessly rewatchable and just an enjoyable film. Marisol.
I think I'm along kind of the same length with you there. Sinister isn't a film I only saw once. Really do like Ethan Hawke in horror. I think he's very expressive. I think that really suits how expressive of an actor he is, and he sells that distress really well. And I like the throwback nature of Sinister a lot. Is this Scott Derrickson's first movie? Is this his debut?
Or no,
it's his second, I think.
Maybe his second. Yeah, but it's early. Yeah, it's early us really showing his potential. I really, really, really do like the throwback nature of it. Which we got in this era, like this and The Conjuring and Insidious were really these like kind of like old styled 70s style horror movies. I think Sinister unravels towards the end there. I can't really elaborate further because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I do remember thinking that it's a tight opening act, but kind of unravels in the third. And Big Short, I love Adam McKay. I appreciate Adam McKay. Let me change that. I appreciate Adam McKay the most when he's angry and making a movie. And you feel that in all of The Big Short. And this is a kind of movie that hits so much harder than, not to bring it up again, but something like Wolf of Wall Street. Like this makes the points. Like, the points, the commentary on what happened and the greed and the mess of it all makes its points a lot more succinctly than like a movie like that. And I'm definitely going to vote for The Big Short. It's not my favorite. And I do agree totally, Jacob, that like, I think this is, this really worked here and has been always kind of like imitated since. And this is when it's kind of like lightning in a bottle with this movie. And Carell for me is a huge standout in this movie. And weirdly enough, Christian Bale in this movie completely. But I'm definitely going to vote for The Big Short.
Adam.
Yeah, another interesting matchup. And I have kind of mixed feelings about both of these movies that lean positive for sure. Mm-hmm. But with Big Short, I revisited it last year. I was compelled. Actually, you know what? We have a little library, and we still like to actually check out DVDs. Yeah. But you go over there, and it's honestly like with everything that's streaming once in a while, what's fun is if you go over there, you see some random DVD on the shelf. You're like, I'm going to check that out today and watch it. That's the fun of it. So I was like, this is a good time to rewatch Big Short. And I'm glad I did. I got more out of it than I had in my previous viewing. And it's a great ensemble piece. It it sticks with its through line. This time around, I will have to say, like, personally, it's not that the Margot Robbie joke offends my sensibilities, but I find it so, in a weird way, dated, if that makes any sense. Not because she's irrelevant, but I think it just, that one little joke this time around, I had actually not even thought about that joke until I rewatched the movie. I was like, oh yeah, I remember when this was like the thing everyone talked about this movie for like 5 seconds. And I get the bit. It's funny. Especially now, like, that they've been
post Barbie.
Yeah, but I really like Gosling's performance in this movie. I like that he's he's the fourth wall guy. He really works as the fourth wall guy in a movie like this. And then Christian Bale, like you said, has a very unique performance. But I think Brad Pitt is underrated for the way he steps in as in a very supporting role, but he lends that little streak of humanity that I think the movie is like struggling to find and halfway through. And I think it mostly recaptures it. So it doesn't feel overly clinical and cynical, not to be rhymey, but I like Big Short. And Sinister is a movie that is like 2/3 of the way there for me. And it's just because the first stretch of the movie is so compelling. And I really, really love the idea of, I'm always a sucker for families relocating and then, something's wrong with the house. But I like that in this case, it's not simply the house being haunted. And that even though there is essentially a boogeyman in this, it's really cool. Like I like the appearance of Bagul, even though, we have like the whole like exposition on Skype, which with Vincent D'Onofrio, it's fine. Like, it's still like really cool the way they set it up. My main complaint with Sinister is in the final stretch, and this isn't spoilery for people who haven't seen the movie, but I just do not, as a horror fan, I really don't like leaning on ghost kids. I really like, you have to have a real specific take on ghost kids for me to give a shit, like Devil's Backbone or the original Ju-on, or like ghost kids really make me go the other way. I'm just like, I check out and
we can quote you on that. Adam will say, fuck them ghost kids.
Yeah. And the worst part about the ghost kids in Sinister is they go shh when you see them. And I'm like, okay, all right. And they completely undermine how cool Bagul is and everything.
Bagul is cool.
I know. Sinister 2 sucks ass. I'm just going to make that
it's
movie.
Okay. I won't let the ghost kids get you, baby. It's okay. It's okay.
They're really lame. But oh my God, that shot of him in the pool. All this Bagul in the pool.
Bagul is cool in the pool. I get it. He's cool.
I think I know the way this is going, so I'm gonna stick with my heart here and go with Sinister by a hair, but I'm not mad at the Big Short winning. I just don't want it to be a sweep.
Mara?
Okay, well, Adam did what I was going to do because I wasn't going to let Sinister get away without having a single vote, because I really do think that it's one of the most effective atmospheric horror movies of the decade. And I also really, really like Bagul. It was one of the first horror movies I showed Dan when I was kind of getting his feet wet into horror, and he really, really enjoys it. It's one of the ones that he brings up where he's like, oh yeah, this is one where you should start here, because it does have a couple of jump scares, but I also think that they're fairly earned, I think. And they're very few. I think there's only like 2 or 3 in the whole movie. The rest is just purely steeping you in discomfort and atmosphere. And I do understand the gripe about Ghost Kid. That's very fair.
It comes down to taste, but I just struggle with it.
No, super fair. Like that's very legitimate. I understand that. I actually hadn't really thought of it that way, but that tracks. But I hadn't seen. I was late to the party on 2015 movies, but The Big Short was actually the first one, I think, of the pack that I doubled back and I watched a few years ago. And oh man, was I not expecting to like it as much as I did. It's not that I'm not into that sort of thing. I actually really like kind of the hey, what the fuck happened movies. And Christian Bale for me is just, he's the guy I'm like, man, I want to be friends with him. Like, he's my kind of weird. And I do like that it makes a complicated thing digestible. It, especially for like an international audience, that's one of the things that I think about. It's not just for the layman in America. It's also for people around the world that are like, I don't really know what the fuck happened in America. I just know things there got shitty, you know? So kind of, I like that it makes it really digestible and entertaining with great performances. I think it's well written. Yeah, I was so surprised by it. It took me completely by surprise. So even though I love Sinister, I think it's great. I'm glad it's not going to just go by the wayside with no votes. Thank you so much, Adam. Sadly, my honest vote would be for The Big Short.
Taylor?
Big Short.
Not gonna vote for the horror movie.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I don't want any ghost kids all up in my space.
You just made too compelling of an
Yeah.
argument against it.
It's a great celebration of home movies, Taylor. You should...
Oh, yeah, that and like it.
All right, next up, the only Bond movie in the entire bracket.
Oh, and a sequel. Oh, gasp.
So we have Skyfall versus Searching.
Oof.
Mara, you look like you want to say something.
I don't love this one. This is actually really tough. I mean, they're very, very different movies. I really like Searching. I think it's maybe the best of like the screen life type of movies, and because most of them are like true horror movies, and this is much more like kind of suspense mystery type of movie. I think the story's great. John Cho's great. I love a good little, hey, Deborah Messing, she does more than Will and Grace and then a rom-com, you know, in the 2000s. And yeah, I don't know. It really enthralled me, and I just think it's commendable for doing what it does the way it did it. But man, Skyfall really just kind of did a thing. They decided, they were like, we're gonna look into James Bond the character, not just James Bond the dude that bones everything, and look at him in his little teeny tiny little shorts walking out of the water and stuff. Like, and I mean, there's still some improvements to be made to his characterization overall, but still though. And I mean, yeah, it's and Adele. Adele. I mean, I have a few problems a little bit with Javier Bardem in this movie, but overall, though, the movie itself, I think, is one of the best in terms of creating fully three-dimensional characters out of everyone in the story of the main people, which you don't usually get in a Bond movie, let alone out of even Q. I do think is pretty well fleshed out in this movie, which is kind of awesome. But yeah, and then of course Dame Judy. Oh, sad. Yeah, God, this is really tough. I think Searching deserves a pity vote, and I kind of want to give it to it because I mean I do think it's Skyfall in this case, but I'm gonna vote for Skyfall anyway.
All right, I'll be real quick with mine. I like Searching. I think Searching was a really nice surprise. It was a real like, oh, that's different. I haven't seen that before. But Skyfall. Like it's like there's a reason why everyone kind of knows this one. It is one of the best Bond movies we've ever had. It's Sam Mendes has this real command of the camera. He has this real command of just this is what I am doing with this. I do find it hilarious and a little weird that we go from his Bond's origin story and then the only ever direct sequel that we ever got for Bond. And then now we have the, oh, you've been in the game too long movie. I do find that always a little weird. Like, it's just like, okay, that's a big jump. but other than that, honestly, Mara, you nailed all of it. It's like everything about this movie, I just think it works so well and it is stunning. Roger Deakins doing Bond is just stunning. And so yeah, I'm going Skyfall. Marisol.
Oh shit. Oh. I really don't want to go to. Okay, no, it's okay. Yeah, I still haven't decided which one I'm picking. And you guys didn't. You guys made it tougher for me now, because now I'm like, oh no, I should like vote for Searching now. Good. I'm still so torn which one to vote for. No, but agreed with everything that's already said. This elevated James Bond movies were like fun action movies, and like Casino Royale, which I still think is the best of the Craig movies, was like an example, like setting the bar for like, this is the full package. This is a way to do it. This is a way to get the action and the excitement and a Bond with depth. And then Skyfall was like, hold my beer. And Skyfall was like, how about we actually elevate these movies to just look like, how about we somebody call Roger Deakins and let's make this movie look like fucking high art. And I just think of how much more than any other Bond movie, it's not even close, how much I just pause Skyfall and just look at it. And I'm just like, whether it's like it goes to the casino in Macau, or he's swimming in that pool on the top of the building, or it's the burning, Skyfall mansion at the end of the movie, and it's just, or the fight in that high with like, oh god, the fight where he's trying to stop the guy from assassinating the other guy, and they bust open the window and the blue lights is like the fight in the darkness. I just, Skyfall has some of the most gorgeous Bond set pieces in the entire franchise. And then I totally agree, William Harold. And then it totally like, and then it's like the scriptwriters are like, what was really big? The Dark Knight. So like, let's like have like Bond have like his own Joker. And like, I feel like that's just then in the third act is just, I think they like wanted like another movie in like the third act of Skyfall. And then they're like, let's throw in some Home Alone too. And that keeps it not as strong as Casino Royale for me, but my God, it is gorgeous. Searching though, what you were all saying about Searching, to commit to such an aesthetic and an idea and a storytelling method and make it really, really, really damn believable. Like they make Searching completely work. It's actually completely plausible that this dad is going to track down his kid through use. It's such a engrossing statement on the dark side of technology, but how technology is invaluable, like in a certain situation like this, and in a way never even seen before. And John Cho, who would have thought, like we've never seen, when's the last time we ever saw John Cho like show up in a dramatic
Season 2
role
of the Exorcist TV show that nobody watched.
except for Adam. Really when's the last time we ever saw?
He was excellent in that.
I do love Skyfall, but Searching really, really, really took me by storm when I saw it. And Skyfall has 2 votes. This is why I didn't want to go third. Skyfall has 2 votes. I'm going to vote for Searching. I got to even this shit out.
Adam.
Oh man, the plot. Skyfalls. I don't know. I didn't want to say thickens. Again, these are very, very interesting matchups because we're doing a little bit of apples and potatoes here. But I will say that I echo everything everyone's been saying about Searching. What was so subversive about it was how meaningful it ended up becoming watching it, because I'm so trained to watch movies in this subgenre, these tech presentation thrillers. Like, I'm so programmed to ingest them as horror, and I like the way Searching completely got that out of the way early and set the tone that this was an investigative thriller, and it kept me on its level. It kept me invested, with his search for his daughter, and I've heard good things about Missing, the spin-off
Mhm.
that's, I don't know how related it is, but like I've heard good things, and I'd like to see more creative thrillers in this style. And Skyfall is, I think, a movie that deserves to be praised among Bond films because I do think it stands apart from a lot of Bond movies. But as much as people like talk about how much people dog on Spectre, for example, I have a similar frustration with how hard people are on Spectre, not because I love it, but I think there's a disproportionate hatred for that movie and a disproportionate praise for Skyfall. And I actually think if you watch them back to back, Skyfall's stronger, don't get me wrong. But I also think there's something to be said about like how we're just attached to this character. And when you see something like Skyfall presented the way it is, it looks awesome. And there's a lot of throwbacks to classic Bond tropes, but they're presented in a way that's really, not grounded in the Casino Royale way, but grounded in the way, we just see things play out action wise. And I think the third act is visually stunning. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this too, because I honestly had more of a personal reaction to Searching, but I appreciate the legacy of Skyfall as a Bond movie because I think it's upper tier Bond. But I'm going to make it interesting, and I'm going to vote for Searching as well because I think Searching deserves to be celebrated, and I think Skyfall is not going anywhere, and it might yet win. So we'll see what happens.
Taylor, are you about to enact a year's worth of revenge on me?
I should.
I made Taylor sit down and watch all 25 Bond movies.
I watched all Bond movies in a row. All of them. Every single one. So that was an experience.
Can we do a whole episode about you watching A View to a Kill?
Oh, seriously. Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts.
So Searching, I agree with what everyone has said, where I went into it not really expecting much and it really surprised me. John Cho is great in it. I think it's very suspenseful and has the right amount of horror elements in it, but is more just kind of a drama and a suspense, which I really liked a lot. Skyfall is one of the 3 out of 25 that I was like, all right, okay, that's fair. Most of them, no. Just no. Skyfall, I appreciate for a lot of reasons. As has been mentioned, they decided to actually take it seriously and get a real cinematographer in there and be like, all right, Deacons, it's time to step it up. We're taking this shit seriously now. We're going from whatever the fucking nonsense was before this. And we're just not doing that anymore. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. I think the story is great. Actually, I think the cast is great. It is genuinely a movie I enjoy, just even outside of Bond. I just think it's a great movie. But when it comes to Bond films, it's like, again, one of the acceptable ones. And it's, this is an interesting matchup. And I really I should do the thing I normally do where I just thrive off of spite. But I do actually really love Skyfall, so I'm not going to do that.
All right.
I had the opportunity and I decided to not do it.
Save it for something that's going to hurt him more.
I'm going to save it. Yeah, I'm saving it.
Skyfall does go through.
All right.
By the way, regarding missing, it's not connected from a narrative standpoint, but it is a really great spiritual sequel. It's very different in terms of how the story plays out. So it's in the same vein, but it feels very, very unique. I highly recommend.
I mean, it technically is connected because it literally opens with her going to see her watching the trailer of the movie based on Searching.
That's the only way it's connected.
Right. I just mean though, it's not people from the first one or in the second one, where it's something else happens to John Cho.
But yeah,
It's in the same universe.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not Storm Reed looking for John Cho.
No,
Then.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, next up, Doctor Sleep versus The Descendants. I'm just gonna go out, and this will be I'll be the one person voting for this goddamn movie. I love The Descendants so freaking much. It is just this absolutely like gut-wrenching of a movie, but also in kind of like a lighthearted way, and it's only the way that Alexander Payne can do. With he's one of the few filmmakers who was able to just make the absolute heartache and heartbreak of death or tragedy and make it somehow light, and you just kind of go with the ride. So I really enjoyed Doctor Sleep. I watched it for the first time this year. I really enjoyed it. I think it is a really good movie as someone who has seen The Shining once and has seen Doctor Sleep once. I really enjoyed them. But The Descendants, I love this movie so much. I think it's one of George Clooney's best performances. I don't think we've ever seen him better in this. And I really love Shailene Woodley in it. So I'm going to go The Descendants, even though I'm most likely going to be the one person voting for this. Taylor?
Yeah, I haven't seen the Descendants. He's been trying to get me to watch it. And I'm like, well, you haven't seen The Big Sick, and you haven't seen this, and you haven't seen that. So maybe I'll get around to it. I don't know. That's my spitefulness where I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure it's fabulous. Doctor Sleep is a really interesting one for me because I have seen it once as well. I've seen The Shining a couple times, which is hilarious that I'm the one that was like, hey, you need to watch The Shining, and finally made you do it.
I'm going to admit something on this stream that I really shouldn't be admitting. It's literally the only Kubrick
yeah,
movie
he
I've
hasn't
seen.
done Kubrick. Anyway, so as someone who's seen The Shining a couple of times, watched Doctor Sleep for the first time this year, and I feel like the more time passes, the more like I want to rewatch it. Like I don't know, something about it I like got to me, even though at the end of it I was like, it's not a perfect film and there are things that like I don't know if it exactly works, but it just kind of swings, like it's just going for it, and I really like that. And I think the performances are really great. And I kind of like that it's just fucking weird. And it's very much different from The Shining in terms of tone, and like it's like spiritual vibe is very different. I don't know. I find it really interesting, and I think on a rewatch it would probably grow on me. But I am gonna vote for Doctor Sleep.
Mara.
Okay. I don't have strong personal positive or negative feelings about The Descendants. I think it's fine. But man, okay, Doctor Sleep, especially the extended cut. Man, okay, as a book reader, this rectifies so many wrongs of The Shining. And I love The Shining as a film. I really do. But as a book person, this sets the record straight on a lot of things that the book community has gripes with about The Shining. And again, I can separate the two. Love the movie, love the book. When the two overlap in a Venn diagram, it becomes a vessel of hatred for me. And Doctor Sleep makes me so happy. I'm like a warm little marshmallow, and the boiler is involved with that, and it makes me so happy. And no one watching this understands anything I'm saying, and that's fine. And also I love Ewan McGregor. Oh, yay! Someone does. I love him. I think his performance is excellent. I've watched this movie. It's over half a dozen times, and again, extended edition.
Mhm.
I cherish it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's visually stunning. It's fantastic. I think it is a wonderful compliment. I also think it is enjoyable on its own, which I think is a challenge. It's a challenge to do something that is super connected to something else. I do think if you haven't seen The Shining, you are able to digest this movie, understand it well enough, because they do just enough with it that I think you can watch it and just be like, I feel like I got what's going on, especially because there's so much pop culture awareness of The Shining. So yeah, man. Oh, Dr. Sleep all the way for me.
One thing I will say about Doctor Sleep that a certain other franchise should absolutely take note of. This is how you do casting people, casting different actors. The audience knows we don't need facial changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Also, I'm gonna make
this is my example. Doctor Sleep is the example I use whenever people try and bring up Luke Skywalker. I'm like, Doctor Sleep. Anyway, Marisol.
Yeah. I am kind of the other end of the spectrum with like being like really entrenched. I've never read Doctor Sleep. I've never read The Shining. I've read a lot of Stephen King, but I've watched a lot of his movies based on his shit. So my exposure to The Shining and the story of Danny Torrance and all of this was the film, was Kubrick's film. And so when I went into Doctor Sleep, I found it fascinating. I wasn't expecting it because you can't do Kubrick. Nobody can do Kubrick. Maybe Jonathan Glazer is like the closest person who can do Kubrick, like a working filmmaker. But I loved how Mike Flanagan still paid homage to that really like ethereal kind of dreamlike, like just dialogue free often kind of version of Kubrick's version, and mixed it with all this intense almost like exposition of really diving into the mechanics of this supernatural like underbelly and everything of what's going on, and really pulling through and really laying out bare all the emotional stakes of this story and this saga. I really enjoyed Doctor Sleep, and I find it fascinating the way those two storytelling styles collide in that movie. It worked for me, like even though I don't have a whole like terrible connection or backstory or connection to the source material. And The Descendants, unfortunately, for me, is absolutely in the lower tier of Alexander Payne's body of work. I one of those situations where a star-making performance for Shailene Woodley, but man, she's such a little asshole, and like, not in the kind of like just not in the way a lot of the characters like Dominic Sesses and like, in oh my God, The Holdovers or something like that, where it's just like there's a lot of pain behind the reason that he's acting out. She's an asshole, and that's fine. But I do always enjoy George Clooney really sinking his teeth into a dramatic role, where he doesn't have to like. I like George Clooney not having to like do like when he's not in Coen Brothers, which I love him in Coen Brothers, but he's usually mugging it in the Coen Brothers movies, and you really get to see him just flesh out a flawed dramatic character. It's still in the lower tier. I only saw it once. Still in the lower tier for Payne for me. I'm definitely going to be voting for Dr. Sleep.
All right, Adam.
Yeah, I think Alexander Payne is one of my personal favorite American directors. I like most of his movies quite a bit. And when it comes to The Descendants, it's one of his I've seen less. But I have no strong disdain for it. But what I will say is I also don't return to it as often as I do some of his other films. I would like to revisit it soon, regardless of the outcome of this bracket, just because I appreciate the way people gravitate towards Alexander Payne projects when they know it's going to be worth their time. And I like that. I could feel the investment from George Clooney when you watch this movie, his buy-in, to just the landscape of not only Hawaii, but the family he finds himself in, and the idea of reconnecting with family for better or worse in the wake of these situations. Also, not very relevant to most people watching, but it's also one of the only movies that Michael Otkin from Twin Peaks ever did after Twin Peaks. The original Sheriff Harry Truman, in case anyone cares. And he has the same... Thank you. And he has the same hair in Descendants that he did in Twin Peaks. So I just want to point him out. He's still working, everybody. And yeah, I want to talk about Dr. Sleep so much, and I'm going to use some restraint. But yes, I do understand the boiler reference, Mara. I have the original miniseries of The Shining, as I call it, the boiler cut right here with Steven Weber. Now, look, is this adaptation a little cheesy? And does it cut a few corners with its budget? Of course. But book readers of The Shining, at least this one, I appreciate Stephen King's miniseries because it gives us that alternate version of The Shining that's truer to the book. But I love Kubrick's version because it does adapt the book and it does put his own stamp on it. And it's this interesting story that has lived in the zeitgeist for so long that you have the book and the movie. And someone like Mike Flanagan is someone who, like a lot of us, deals with the schism of loving them both. And he used that as a strength when he made Dr. Sleep. And I think it's so effective because it's a movie that through adaptation shouldn't work on a lot of levels, especially when you try and be cognizant of the Kubrick aspect of it and the fact that Stephen King doesn't like that film, which is well known, and the fact that he could make something that respects the legacy of a great movie in terms of what Stanley Kubrick did, but also it honors the legacy of the story that Stephen King was trying to tell. Because the whole thing about Jack Torrance as a character is he's a character in the book who he goes through an arc, and you don't see that in the film as much. And what's great about Dr. Sleep is there's a reclamation of that story arc that works without being heavy-handed. That's just one thing I love about that movie. I love the fact that it expands upon all the things that you hear about in The Shining, but aren't really specified. They're kind of vague. But it also doesn't become this overly bogged down thing about world building and mythologizing a bunch of crap. I love that there's weird thermoses with spirits, but we don't really understand why that's the case. And I love Rose the Hat, and I love, good Lord, I vote for Dr. Sleep, but damn, I'm going to make an effort just so we can keep the show moving.
Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time next in 8 weeks when we go back, because it has made it through 4-1. All right, next up, The Raid versus Jojo Rabbit.
The Raid versus Jojo Rabbit.
Oh shit.
Adam, I'm gonna.
No.
All right, since you cut yourself off with Dr. Sleep, I'll let you start with this one.
Sure. I really enjoy The Raid. I just enjoy this movie. It's one of those movies that I do put on, and it is just like an action gratification experience. I understand why some people find it exhausting because it is kind of relentless, but I love the way it's structured, and I think it's paced pretty well. I do think you get breaks in the action so that, at least for me, when I watch it, I don't get exhausted. And then Jojo Rabbit, I think emerged at a time when, post Thor Ragnarok, obviously Taika was like, okay, well, I have a huge opportunity to do something, and something that is more unique to him, obviously, and I like that. I like a lot of what happens in Jojo Rabbit. I have no issues with it per se. I think it's amusing, and I think the emotions are pretty well earned. I think it's cool that he won an Oscar for that, because to approach that kind of material and to be as subversive as he was while also being thoughtful about it, there's something to be said for that. I'm going to go back to The Raid, though, and I'm just going to say, I can't say that there's a ton of meaning to be gleaned from Iko Uwais killing 90 people in self-defense, mind you, because they really won't stop. They really won't stop attacking him. And, he's just trying to fight back at the end of the day. And there's something about the raid that on some like metaphorical level for me feels like the worst day at work ever. And that's why there's like this dark comedic element to it that I just, every time I watch it, as grotesque as it is, I find it to be so like kind of joyfully chaotic, and I find all the things flying around and stabbing people in the head to be very amusing. So maybe I'm a twisted bastard. I vote for the raid. I love watching the raid. I don't have a whole pitch about why it's meaningful to society at large, but God, I love it. It's not gonna. It never won any Oscars. That's fine.
Did you say me?
Yes, sorry, Ma.
Oh, sorry. I'm glad that Adam spoke first because I got a chance to collect myself. Because I'm unhappy about this. The raid is like an action sploosh fest.
Yes.
I only saw it for the first time last year. Please don't hate me.
Never too
and
late.
I have not seen the sequel yet, so no spoilers. I assume it will also make me sploosh. But man, I appreciate good cinematography and excellent practical fight choreography. That is like cinematic gold to me. It makes me so happy in my pants. But man, Jojo Rabbit just does so much for me in my feels, and I don't normally feel feelings. Do you know how hard it is to make Hitler one of my favorite movie characters? I mean, absurdity is a really difficult kind of humor to do effectively, especially because this movie balances rapid swings in a change in tone really, really well. I mean, because it's going to get me to laugh about how stupid the Nazis were. The real Nazis, not the I was just following orders Nazis, but like the real, like, OMG, the Jews are just like the worst. Let's just final solution those guys. But and then OMG, like the world's so beautiful. OMG, my mom's dead. Like there's like a lot of like rapidly changing tones in this movie, and it really, really works. I just think that this was a feat of structural engineering from a writing perspective. It was so well cast. I mean, it's always nice to, especially in the era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, to remind people Scarlett Johansson can act and that she is worth more than a skin-tight bodysuit. Because I think that it's easy for a certain quadrant of the general populace to forget this. I love seeing Stephen Merchant do anything, anywhere, and I want to stand next to him and hurt myself looking up to speak to him. I had the pleasure of speaking with Taika about this movie, and that is a very special conversation that I'll cherish forever, because this just was a really meaningful movie to me. And yes, it's always great to be able to laugh about it, but also anytime that we can find a way to entertain people and sneakily insert a meaningful message reminding people that nationalism is bad and scary, and looking at how far we've come just from when this movie came out to where we are now in the United States, and the rise of nationalism and pride in things like white supremacy, and with what's going on in the Middle East right now, demonstrations. And I'm not talking about a pro-Israel, anti-Palestine, or vice versa perspective, but just in general, a rise in anti-Semitism, that this movie can be out there to sneakily educate people that the past happened and that it can happen again. So Jojo Rabbit for the win.
Taylor.
You gonna go to me next?
Actually, no, I'm gonna go Marisol next. Actually, yeah.
I hate being in this spot. Ah!
Have a drink.
No, not yet. That'll come later. But yeah, I'm I'm fresh off of watching Jojo Rabbit for the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I nailed it, Mar. What a whirlwind. Like and Taika's, to be fair, like that's what Taika's always done. Like now I've seen almost everything. I've seen every film Taika Waititi's done now. That was Jojo Rabbit was the last one I had to see. I've seen every single film he's made. And this is really big. This childhood innocence and the sweetness of discovering the world and discovering love and discovering all the beautiful stuff, smacked up against like death and something terrible happening, is really big for him, and all in his whimsical little world. And I do have to be honest. I think like right off the gate, like right out of the gate, just reactions to it, I don't think the balance is struck as I think maybe masterfully as Boy or Hunt for the Wilder People. I think I almost wish because like at the beginning of the movie when it's almost like Moonrise Kingdom at Nazi camp at the beginning of the movie. And it really is like, and it's wonderful, but I found myself engaged so much more with the mother-son relationship, and that was just so the heart of the movie, and the relationship with the girl in the wall, like that kind of thing. Those two relationships were just such the heart of the movie, and I was like, Taika, you can do this movie, like like this is so strong. That I also would have loved to see like a whole satire of it too, but I almost think it was strongest in this almost like with this like kind of life is beautiful energy. And I was seeing a new side of him as a filmmaker, like a new confidence and as a storyteller that I wanted to stay in for like the whole movie. But I think Jojo Rabbit is really special. I think it is really wonderful. And yeah, like Taika, weirdly enough, is actually made Hitler fun. That is the weirdest thing you'd ever think. But I thought that was an excellent foil to have this imaginary friend with this little Nazi enthusiastic little boy to juxtapose that with the innocence, the naive fanaticism that is so easy to fall into as a child, with to filter that through this worshiping of Hitler of all people, I think was a great backbone for the whole movie, to frame the whole story. And then the raid, everything you said about the raid, but the raid is like brains and bones and blood and guts, like extraordinaire. And to be so weird in a movie talking about the horrors of war, to have a movie that just so, without any statement, any kind of political statement, almost in this bubble, just relishes, almost just excels in the art of combat. Relentlessly. It's so weird to put these two movies side to side, and I enjoy them both a lot in incredible ways. And I think The Raid is very special for it's what people think of when they think of action. It's become this film, it has become this defining, and I haven't seen the sequel yet, but I heard about the sequel as well. But it's become this film that has become this peak of action in the 21st century, this go-to. I remember when it came out, I remember how the fervor around it. And it really is this experience. I get exhausted by the John Wick films. I get kind of exhausted by them. But The Raid sucked me completely in with its setting, with its claustrophobia. And I don't know.
They stab a man with a light bulb in that film.
Yeah, they do.
It's great.
There's a part of The Raid that still makes me feel about the art of combat rather than I just think the excess of violence. I talk that all out, and I don't think I'm closer to picking one. You picked The Raid. Mara picked Jojo Rabbit. I'm going to pick The Raid.
Okay. Taylor.
I don't regret
Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit. it's like it's that movie, man. Like it's that movie where you're like, wait, who directed this movie? Who wrote this movie? And then you're like, oh wow, that's cool. That's awesome. It's so tonally hits the mark that it needs to hit the entire movie. It has the exact emotional punches that it needs to have. It has the perfect comedic beats in it that allow it to not just be completely, like heavy the entire time. The satire is so well handled, and that one frame of the fucking shoes will kill me until the day. Like seeing that frame of the shoes like wrecked me and will wreck me forever. So it's got to be Jojo.
Yeah. I'm gonna be an affront to my gender, and I am gonna also go Jojo.
What?
be
This
so
Macho
dense.
action movie? What?
Jojo. I'm more of an emotional hit me emotionally than wow me with action, and that's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Jojo Rabbit. But yeah, these are close. These are close, and yeah, that one. Yeah. All right. Well, we move on to maybe a palate cleanser.
Oh god.
Blue Jasmine versus She's Out of My League.
Yo.
Taylor, I'm gonna let you go wax lyrical about one of these movies.
Cool. So She's Out of My League slaps. I love She's Out of My League. I think, again, like comedies are really hard for me. For some reason, like my sense of humor is just like even more specific than I think a lot of people. So it's hard for me to find comedies that work for me, and She's Out of My League definitely works for me. I think the cast, with one exception, is great. If I could go back and like digitally recast one person, that would be good. But everything else is great. I think the concept is fun. I think I just enjoy watching it. It's one of those movies where it's not really like doing anything crazy or breaking any molds necessarily, I don't think, but I just have a fun time with it. So I love that movie. Blue Jasmine, I have not seen. I should probably see it, but just from a personal standpoint, Woody Allen is not high on my list of things that I'm exploring. Just personally, like I'm sure, cinema or whatever, but just like I've got such a big list of like directors I need to check out and movies I need to check out, and Woody Allen is like in the basement of like where that is on my priority list. So I'm going with She's Out of My League.
So Blue Jasmine's weird for me. I think Cate Blanchett is phenomenal in this movie. I think is absolutely sensational, and I think the approach the film takes in like dealing with, and it's not actually based on her, but it basically is of Bernie Madoff's wife and how she handled dealing with suddenly Bernie Madoff happening. And I find the approach that Woody Allen makes to it interesting and unique, but there's a lot about it that I also don't really love, and I don't connect with the movie as much as something like like Midnight in Paris, or like where it's just like this. I just can sit in this world forever with these characters, whereas in Blue Jasmine, I just can't wait to get out of there. I'm just not. I think Cate Blanchett's performance is phenomenal, but I just don't like spending time with these characters, which I guess is kind of the point because she is an awful character. I just don't enjoy it. The opposite is true if She's Out of My League. I just love spending time with these guys. They're funny. They're fun. I really do think. I think the love story between Jay Baruchel and Alice Eve is quite quite lovely and really heartfelt. and also kind of really does speak to to insecurity as well, and I really liked that. So yeah, I'm going with She's Out of My League. Adam.
We would be having a different conversation if this was between Blue Jasmine and the song by Fitz and the Tantrums. I believe it is. Yes. That honestly, that's all I think of when I hear this title, because I'm very, very sorry. I didn't make time for She's Out of My League. I blew it, and I will cash in my bracket card if that's what it takes. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. She's Out of My League. I'm sorry. I wish you all the best. But Blue Jasmine's a movie I caught up with a few years ago, and it's interesting because like a lot of like there are some Woody Allen movies I like, some I don't. But I'm willing to give most of his movies a chance once, especially depending on the era. But in like post 2000s, I checked out on him, not because of like personal reasons so much as taste. Like he was making a lot of movies that I just didn't find as engaging. And I remember the Larry David movie came out, Whatever Works. And that movie's not incredible by any stretch, but I remember that was the first time like I turned my head at a Woody Allen project in a while. And I caught up with Blue Jasmine and Midnight in Paris way later because I'd heard good things about both of them. And of the two, Blue Jasmine was the one that resonated with me more because I found the story to be, you know, especially for Allen's work, one of the more human stories, because it's, you know, it's about a stage in your life that, you know, yes, it's about a woman who's going through a divorce with a rich and arguably powerful person, but it boils down to the fact that she has to lean on her sister. And I love the relationship between her and Sally Hawkins in the movie. I love all the performances in the movie. I love the way it correlates and is reminiscent of like Tennessee Williams and A Streetcar Named Desire and a lot of stuff from that era, without being like a direct adaptation of that. And I think it stands apart as its own movie, even amongst Woody Allen's body of work. I find Cate Blanchett's performance to be so arresting and really engaging to watch. And I think she's very deserving of the Oscar. And I think it's a movie people struggle to revisit, maybe because of their issues with Woody Allen. And I can appreciate that to an extent, but I also think the movie deserves to be examined on its own merits. And I think it's a very strong movie. And I will see She's Out of My League someday, maybe, but I'm going to vote for Blue Jasmine.
Marisol.
So, I'll just preface this by saying that I made a drink called the Blue Jasmine tonight in honor of tonight's bracket because I picked my favorite movie of the night. Made a drink about it. And Blue Jasmine is my favorite movie in this week. I think. Wait, or maybe. We'll figure out. But it's definitely up there. I echo a lot of what you're saying, Adam. The Tennessee Williams energy in this is palpable. It's a Cate Blanchett performance for the ages. It is so exposed and messy and just a whirlwind of just alcohol and emotions and bubbling mental instability. As somebody spirals through a low point in their life, but has a fantastic supporting cast to lean on. Sally Hawkins always brings her A game, and even Alec Baldwin is great in the parts that he's in. Everybody's wonderful, but it is Blanchett's show through and through, and I think the movie, I understand if it's kind of alienating for others. I don't think that it is a movie that everybody can love, but I am over the moon about it. And I do think it's towering in its presentation and absolutely one of the strongest movies Woody Allen's made in this century, honestly, so far. And then She's Out of My League. saw it a long time ago, but I do remember rom-coms are I'm pretty finicky when it comes to rom-coms, and for this one in particular, I felt the movie, I just think in terms of the genre, even the most mainstream of rom-coms, I find it very shallow. I feel it tackling an interesting topic about what if your insecurities where you're challenged in your relationship and meeting somebody that you vibed with, but I find that the movie approaches it in very surface area where, again, we have as usual in these kind of things, the woman is pretty much flawless, and the pressure is put on the man who feels like he's not a worthy enough partner. And I don't know a single woman who's perfect in my life, you know, and I do get exhausted of seeing the perfect, beautiful, perfect woman in so many rom-coms. It was a great job. She's an accent, she's gorgeous, who just seems, her flaws seems to be like she has like slightly webbed feet, or she's a little clumsy, you know, but the guy is allowed to be a full dimensional, like flawed human being who has a lot of his vulnerabilities on display. And I would find the movie maybe a little more even keeled if they both were meeting, like a eternal sunshine of the spotless mind kind of movie, where two deeply flawed people just trying to find and connect with each other in their relationship in a certain way. So that's what holds me back with something like She's Out of My League, even though cast is charming. Alice Eve, Jay Baruchel, Kristen Ritter. The cast is charming. It's just I find it to tackle a potentially interesting romantic comedy in a very surface manner. So this is absolutely Blue Jasmine for me.
Mara, got the deciding vote.
Ooh. Everyone has said a lot of things that I agree with, and because of that, I won't belabor the point. I agree with all of the things, pretty much everything that was said, and the things that I agreed with the most make me vote for She's Out of My League.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Really?
Well, I'm very sorry, Marisol, but yeah, She's Out of My League does make it through to the next round.
She's about to chug the rest of that drink.
I'm trying not to. That's a full drink right there.
All right, next up.
I'm gonna need to give me a minute.
The Big Sick versus Cinderella. I'm gonna go last. Taylor.
Okay, I'll go first. Because I love both of these movies. We finally come to a portion of the night where I can talk about both of the movies. So for the most part, Disney live action adaptations make me want to stab myself in the face. However, Cinderella is my favorite one. And I'm like, wow, they kicked it off so strong, and then it all just went downhill more and more every single time afterwards, which is a great way to go, basically. You know, that's exactly how you want to do business, essentially. Cinderella, I have so much fun with. I think Lily James is amazing in it. I think Richard Madden is incredible casting. I love the little bits of Haley Atwell we get in it. I think the costuming is actually really clever and interesting. It does its own take on, you know, the original animation dresses without being like cartoonish and without being underwhelming, I think. So that's really cool. It's just cute. Like, it's a cute way to bring the animated version to the live action, where you feel like they do some cute, interesting things with it, and it's not just like copy and paste. And you're like, why are we doing this? Which is most of the other ones are like, why, God, why Lion King? Why do we need a live action CGI Lion King? Essentially is my complaint. The Big Sick. Listen, that movie, sat down and watched it, sat there for a second just staring at the screen in silence as the credits rolled, and then turned it back on again immediately and watched it over again a second time. I love The Big Sick so much. I think it's so heartfelt and so genuine. and so real, and you can really tell that it came from such a personal place. You can tell that Camille and Emily really put themselves into it. And I think it's a story that we don't really get to see for a lot of reasons. Just a lot of elements of it are very unique. I think the casting is great. I think that Camille is great and Zoe Kazan is great. I think some of the scenes with her parents, are some of the best scenes in the whole movie. Him having to kind of bond with her parents without her is, I love it so much. There's just so much I love about this movie. I think that Michael Showalter does a great job directing the film. And it's really one that just like stuck with me immediately, and it has stuck with me ever since. And it's one that I literally, if I have the opportunity to recommend it to anyone, I'm just like, listen, if I can find a way to put the Big Sick into this conversation, that's gonna happen, and that's what we're gonna do, and you should watch it. So as much as I adore Cinderella, and as much as I think it's like pretty much the only live action adaptation that we needed, and then they should have just quit while they were ahead for the most part, it really hurts me that I have to vote against Richard Madden in those pants. Like, that hurts me a lot on a personal level, but I have to vote for the Big Sick.
Mara?
Okay. Taylor and I are one human being right now. Again, I feel like this entire bracket, I'm like, I was late to the party on blah, 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 blah. I didn't see Cinderella until I think it was last year. And I am not a fan of the live action adaptations, but man, does this one slap. Like, this, I hate to say it, but I understand now why they make so many of them, because this one was a home run. This one is great. It really did it enhanced the original. It did do stuff. I mean, I will say, I do think that the Jungle Book one also enhances the original. It does expand and do things that the original didn't do. So I'm not saying all of them are garbage, but Aladdin is. Anyways, so it's really insulting to kind of like real Middle Eastern culture, just FYI. So anyways, sorry, there you go, white people. But anyways, Cinderella is so beautiful. It's so fun and it's sweet and I love it. And she said amazing, great things about it, technically and creatively and from a craft perspective. But the Big Sick, we can't not vote for that. In this house. I know I told you, Jacob, that you were going to basically meet my family watching this movie, and there you go. So, do you know what joke I was talking about now when I said you were going to hear maybe?
No,
I
still haven't watched it.
He still hasn't watched it, like a heathen.
What the fuck?
Yeah, sorry.
I know.
Yeah, it's been a long week. It's been a very long week.
Well, when it goes through, I'm going to have to watch it.
My Uber's here. And I have to go. I'm so upset. I was so looking forward to that.
Yeah, you don't.
Everyone else here knows what joke I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that movie is a wonderful encapsulation of what it feels like in a lot of ethnic families, not just Middle Eastern families, but a lot of ethnic families where there is a gross amount of misunderstanding and confusion about why you date outside of your race, especially dating Caucasian or at least white presenting people. And this movie, like, it's a true story, which makes it even more meaningful, but it's another educational experience for people to be like, hey, yeah, I can understand why it's really challenging to be a part of this family, or to know why, hey, maybe this is why I've never met your family, or this or that. Like, families are complicated, and their relationship is complicated enough as it is because of what happens to her medically, but seeing all of it through the lens of, it's so amazing, he basically falls in love with her and she's not even there. Like, it's just so sweet. I love it. It's amazing. yeah, fantastic movie. I highly recommend you actually watch it, Jacob.
I will.
Do I need to make you watch it? Do I need to watch it with you? Do we need to get on a call and watch it?
We will. I will. I just need to find time. This was a bad week. Marisol.
Do we need to hang out? Because we can hang out.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to that.
Okay, cool. Legit.
Marisol.
Hi. I think I'm still in recovery mode. And I've still been debating like downing my entire drink. But I won't. But no. This is a good palate cleanser for me because these are two pretty delightful movies. With no personal stakes for me in this. So let's do it. No, yeah, I caught up with Cinderella this week. Long overdue. And the reason I waited so long is because I've just been so unhappy, echoing like what you guys were saying with these Disney live action remakes. Started off so strong. The first one I saw in the era like was The Jungle Book. Started off so strong and just been downhill ever since. I still haven't seen The Little Mermaid, but again, I'm not really enthusiastic to see it. Like I started dragging my feet with this shit after The Lion King. And and then thankfully I caught up with Cinderella and was like, oh my God, it was just so refreshing. It's just so simple. It's so straightforward. It's almost maybe simple to a fault. I think the movie is a little long for how simple it is, but I really appreciate the emotional earnesty of it. And Kenneth Branagh just delivering a crystalline, good old-fashioned, emotionally resonant, simple fairy tale. And there's something to be said in the age of the wink wink and the clever nods and trying to make it hip and update. But what if Cinderella had a sword? What if she had a sword? And what if she it sometimes, those reinventions can be really fun, but there was something to say. It was really, you come back around where it's honestly refreshing to just see a simple traditional retelling, just genuinely done to the nines as Cinderella with a dazzling cast. And you genuinely believe that Prince Kit and Ella would fall in love. And you genuinely believe in it and the magic of falling in love and the power of love and familial love. And then over there, The Big Sick, agree with everything that's been said about The Big Sick. And then in the end, you got a completely unique, you got an example of turning your life into art, which is what The Big Sick is. And it's stranger than fiction because it's real life and kicked off, I think, everybody's love affair with Kumail Nanjiani. And I think that it is a wonderfully acted movie, top to bottom. And it really resonated with me and it means a lot. And I love the balance of the humor of falling in love, the funny side of it and the really tragic side of it. And it is an endearing story. It's a real life story. Cinderella is a fantasy version of every little kid's fantasy of what the most magical and ideal way and the happily ever after of love can be. And Big Sick is finding your happily ever after in the most unlikely and most stacked against you odds kind of situation of two special people coming together. Both special in their own ways. There's no wrong way to look at a love story, but I'm definitely going to pick The Big Sick.
Adam?
I've been trying to pick my moment to be efficient tonight because I haven't been as of yet. So I am going to go ahead and tell you what I'm voting for with the caveat that I'm going to say something briefly afterwards. I do vote for The Big Sick. There you go. It's terrific. It's a fantastic movie. And I think the reason Cinderella is better than a lot of the remakes we've been talking about is because you let Kenneth Branagh do what Kenneth Branagh does very well, which is adapt stories that people know and find a really cool cast of his buddies and put them in there. And, it's in the Shakespearean tradition, which that's what I like about his version of Cinderella. So yeah, it's upper tier Disney live action stuff. But The Big Sick is a movie that, as celebrated as it was, I agree with the gripes at the time that it should have been given some recognition in the awards circuit more than it was. But I think ever since then we've seen, Kumail and company getting more and more work, so that's good. But I also I think it's terrific. So I vote for The Big Sick. That was pretty brief. Pretty brief.
Nailed it, baby.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Look, as has been said, I haven't seen The Big Sick. So
You piece of garbage.
I know. So I'm just look. Cinderella doesn't deserve to get swept, so I'm
It
going to
does
give.
not.
I'm going to
No,
give.
yeah.
Is that a pun?
Oh my god, I didn't even. That wasn't intended.
Is that a broom joke?
But yeah. So with that, The Big Sick does move on. All right.
Oh God.
Next up,
Justice for Billy Jasmine.
Pitch Perfect versus the Lego Movie. I will be quick with this. I like both of these movies. I like both of them, but I'm gonna go with the Lego Movie because it was a lot more of a breath of fresh air and just like that was a lot of fun. Even though I think it's kind of aged a lot since when I last watched it. I think it's just kind of one of those ones I've watched so many times. It's just kind of graded a little bit. Whereas I really like Pitch Perfect, but I much kind of prefer the sequel. Like I really like the sequel, so I'm gonna go with the Lego Movie. Tell.
Yeah, these are both movies that I enjoy. I think they're both fun. I think they both are very strong movies in what they're trying to do. Yeah, this one's interesting. I think for me, what's gonna tip me towards Pitch Perfect is just that like music is the gateway to my soul. As much as I love movies and doing this movie like show and stuff, like music is like everything to like it holds me together as a human being. And I just love the way that they used the acapella songs, and I love I actually do think it's funny. Like I think the humor is great. I think the cast is a lot of fun. And yeah, I just think, when it's not, I wouldn't call it a musical necessarily, but it's like almost a musical, and that's like my brand specifically. So
Adam.
Yeah, Pitch Perfect is I have nothing against a group of folks getting together and singing songs and becoming friends. I think that's a nice idea. And as someone who went to a college that had its own a cappella group that was really nerdy, and I went to their concerts repeatedly because it was like kind of a thing. All right, I'll just, because everyone wants to know. I went to Ithaca College, but the a cappella group was called Ithacapella. And they were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun. And that's why I did appreciate a lot of the musical humor in Pitch Perfect. I'm not as hot on the sequels. I think the first one is kind of unique because it wasn't as aware of itself, and all that stuff. And Lego Movie is a movie I had no expectations. Really, really impressed me. I've seen it better part of 3 times now without trying even, and it really makes me laugh. And I think it's sweet. And I think it's so interesting that in the wake of it, we've had movies like Free Guy and Barbie, which literally have the same opening sequence as the Lego Movie. And I think the Lego Movie did it best. The idea of breaking out of your artificial life, because it's Legos. And Lego's done such a good job as a brand of getting writers who understand that level of humor. And for those of us who play video games, it goes back to the video games. It really started with a lot of the video games because a lot of the goofy humor you see in that movie was originally manifested in like the Lego Star Wars and Lego Harry Potter and Lego Lord of the Rings games. So I vote for the Lego Movie. I think it's very, very fun and pleasantly subversive. But yeah, Pitch Perfect, I get it. I get why people find that movie enjoyable. I do.
Mara.
This one's tough for me. I do think that the Lego movie was really innovative with its animation. I just think its messaging is kind of counterproductive in a way, because it like contradicts its own concept, because like, you know, don't follow the instructions when literally the entire point of putting together a Lego set is you have to follow the instructions. So that's like confusing for me. But the first Pitch Perfect movie is like a delightful and enjoyable movie. So they're both just kind of fun movies for me. Like, I don't think either one is like a super impactful story. So it's like, which fun movie do I want? And it's hard because I also think that like Chris Pratt is just wearing on me so much now that I have to make sure I distance myself from back then. I still found that very, very charming. And is that more charming than Anna Kendrick wearing a lot of eyeliner? I don't know. But I think just because of the animation being so cool, I'm just going to go with the Lego movie.
Marisol?
Lord and Miller, y'all. Lord and Miller. It was an easy peasy one for me. Although I will say, whatever, 2012 Pitch Perfect came out, I was just along with every damn other person I do was doing little cup shit. I was doing a little cup song. You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. I was doing that whole thing like all summer. I was guilty. I was guilty. No, I did cups like way back in the den, but you never did it with that song on the end of it though. Okay, so look, that was catchy, and I went to a high school where a cappella was huge. So similar to what you're saying about college. So I totally understand why this is a hit with acapella junkies and kids who grew up on that stuff. Also at the same time, you know, the songs are cute, but it doesn't quite translate to being acapella is really exciting because you see it in person and you're excited to root on your friends. It doesn't really translate to watching it in a film and watching other like strange actors do it in a movie. It's not as cool when you watch it in a movie. I gotta be honest. It's not as cool. I haven't seen the sequels yet, but it's a little lost in translation in the movie, but I appreciate the spirit and the camaraderie behind it. Lego movie, I can agree with it not being like maybe a complete home run, but Lego movie is still tickles me rotten. It is an explosion of creativity, energy, clever humor, and the beginning of before I heard Chris Pratt's voice in like my nightmares. Chris Pratt was still a novelty, and his voice totally works for bland ass little Gary in the Lego movie. And that movie still puts a big smile on my face. And I think it still holds up. And the beginning of Will Ferrell being the evil guy, you know, the evil guy running like the Toyland, which he was in Barbie too. I never thought about that. But yeah, definitely Lego movie.
All right. Well, with that, Lego movie does move on. All right. Now let's move on to Long Shot versus Hereditary. Mara, I'm going to let you start.
The Long Shot is a really fun movie. I was surprised by it. Genuinely, I didn't expect anything even at all entertaining or meaningful out of it, but it is no Hereditary, just like full stop. Hereditary is legit. I'm so sad I didn't get to see it during its theatrical re-release recently, but I was otherwise occupied being down under and you know, hanging out with the wallabies. But man, it is frightening. It is atmospheric. It has really well orchestrated jump scares. I think it is a wonderful metaphor for mental illness and for complicated family dynamics. Toni Collette was robbed of a nomination. She was straight up robbed. Whether or not she deserved to win is a very long conversation because she wasn't even nominated, but she was absolutely robbed of a nomination. She was fantastic. I mean, going back to the 90s with Misery and Silence of the Lambs, it's like the last real time that the Academy was like, you know what? like horror actresses, like they got some stuff. Like we need to go back to that time. Let's go back there. So, I mean, it's the cinematography in it is amazing. The score, my God, like it's one of the only times where I'm like, someone fell asleep on keys while making a score and it works for me. Like it's fantastic. You pick up so many things, like every single little detail in that movie is just, I'm going to just steal the term from the last thing. It is pitch perfect. I adore the movie. I'm going to let Adam talk about it more because there's so many other things to glean from this movie. And I'm not going to do it justice talking about all of them because he is also the horror aficionado here. So please, let's go to Adam next. I'm stealing the reins of the show. So Adam, please go.
Adam.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I do vote for Hereditary, but I am still going to talk. All right. Because give Longshot its flowers for a second. This is a movie that I made the effort to go see in theaters after not planning to because of the good word of mouth. I'm glad I did. Very enjoyable. Unexpected amount of chemistry between Rogan and Charlize. Really, I've watched it twice, and I like it. I really do. I recommend it. A lot of fun. And I also like stuff set in and around the realm of politics, regardless of genre. So I enjoy that as well. So Hereditary, I remember the buildup of this movie. I get really, I don't get overhyped necessarily about horror films. I always try and manage my expectations, but there is this excitement that I am happy to embrace when you have something like Hereditary that had all of this buzz coming out of the festivals, and I was just dying for it to be released in theaters because I wasn't going to be able to see it until that happened. And I remember buying my tickets, and then they had to change the showtime, and then they offered to refund my money, and I said no because I wanted to support Hereditary, and they didn't understand, so they gave me free popcorn. Anyway. It was such a great theatrical experience. One of my favorites. I saw it at like 11:30 in the morning, but there were like a good 12 people there. And I'll just never forget. You know, the movie's been out for a while. All I'll say is ceiling, right? We remember the ceiling, those of us who've seen the movie.
Why you gotta bring that shit up? Why you gotta bring that shit up?
Just one dude off to the right, just like a good 30 seconds, not realizing he hadn't caught up with what was happening yet, and then the sudden realization behind me, I just, oh shit. And I was just like, this is why I come to the movies. And the way my heart sank so many times in this movie, the way it had these turns in it that gutted me and just left me completely it was just raw nerves going into the back half of the film. And yeah, like Mara was saying, it really does this great job of exploring generational trauma and struggles with mental health. But it also has a lot to do with the way that institutionalized itself, the way that situates itself in a family dynamic, specifically the fact that Toni Collette's character meets her husband because she was one of his patients and he's a therapist, and that is alluded to throughout the movie, and you feel that tension in their relationship. You feel him trying to pull back on advising her and how much she doesn't want that advice, and how unhealthy arguably maybe the outset of their relationship was a long time ago. And you can just feel that every time you watch it. The way she loves and resents her children. It's all through the performance and also through rewatches, you see that. And Dowd, I just want to give her a shout out because she shows up in genre films. She shows up in a lot of films, but she shows up a lot as this, an expositional character, arguably. Most recently in the horrible Exorcist film. It was so beneath her. And they were just trying to do what she did in Hereditary, but shitty. And they accomplished that, I suppose. But I, like Mara was saying, you go back and you rewatch the movie, and there are just all these things that stick out to you. And calling them Easter eggs is cheap because it's not what they are. It's storytelling, and that's what makes Ari Aster films so rewatchable for me. I love Hereditary down to my bones, and I look forward to a Criterion release just because I want them to have an excuse to sit Ari Aster down and talk about this. But I think, they're trying to force themselves to give it at least 15 or 20 years before they do that again. So yeah, I love Hereditary so much. So does Taylor. And I can't wait to hear about why. So let's move on and see what happens.
Marisol, I'm going to go to you next.
I don't have much to say that has been said. So I'm going to say this. I love Long Shot. I remember just being it's surpassing all my expectations for it. And I think Jonathan Levine is always can take just like maybe like a basic sounding premise, and I think he's a really thoughtful director. All his comedies have this layer of something else special beyond their premise, and he brings a lot of great performances out of his actors, and some of the better comedies of the 2010s for sure. I really love all the things you were saying about Long Shot. I am voting for Hereditary 100%, though. There's not even a doubt in my mind. That's how much I think Hereditary
you're about to
fucking
give
rocks.
a vote, you were going to be very terrified. Taylor.
Well, as someone who's seen Hereditary 6 times now, no. No.
Including during this panel.
Yeah, including right now, I'm watching it all on the screen. No. We were actually thinking about going to the re-release, and then something else came up that we couldn't. Like, we were gonna put ourselves through it, and I was probably gonna regret it forever. But we had something that came up, so we didn't end up doing it. But I've seen some screenshots and some small little clips from Hereditary, and that's enough to make me.
You've been told enough.
I've been told enough to be like, I don't know if that's. But listen, as someone who didn't see the movie, though, I was still mad that Toni Collette didn't get enough. Like, I was furious on behalf of just seeing the clips and like the hearing about it. Long Shot is super fun. Chemistry's great. Was surprising, like, because I was like, I don't know what to expect from this. I had a good time with it, so it's getting my vote because it deserves a vote.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm gonna give her Hereditary its other votes. Yeah, it's going through. So 4-1 Hereditary, and yeah, all right. This is the Taylor sits out.
This is the I'm not gonna vote unless y'all make me. So please don't make me.
Yeah. The Conjuring versus First Reformed.
Oh.
I'm gonna start. Conjuring is one of my all-time favorite movie-going experiences. It's just one of the best experiences I've had in a theater. The movie's not amazing. The movie is not like I think it's very good because I really love James Wan as a filmmaker. But man, just being in the theater with a crowd of horror an audience. I think I need to paint the picture. Australia, especially early 2010s, were not great with horror. Like, we rarely got horror movies in general. So for a big budget, relatively speaking, for horror, with a full-blown release and having some weight behind it and playing to a sold-out crowd on opening weekend is just one of, hands down, the best movie-going experiences I've ever had. It was so fun. It was just seeing friends, and I went with about 10 friends, and seeing all of them just freak out. It was just awesome. So I like, for that alone, I'm going with The Conjuring, just because it's one of my all-time favorite movie-going experiences, and there's not a whole lot of other movies that are going to be like, hey, I'm just going to knock it out for that. So yeah, Conjuring. Mara.
This is interesting. They're accomplishing two really different things. Like, First Reformed is contemplative, and it is much more psychological and metaphorical, and based more on, I think, performance, and it's character driven a little more than like narratively driven. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. But The Conjuring really captured something. Like it, whether or not, like, I think there are degrees of quality to the subsequent films. But I would say that creating even what you would call a just generally successful, whether you want to say really successful or even mildly successful horror franchise, now that we've gotten out of like the really core ones of, you know, like the heyday of like your Halloweens, your Nightmare on Elm Streets, your Friday the 13th, or even your Screams, which again, also all of those have varying degrees of quality. But like The Conjuring is like the now powerhouse of horror franchises, and that really kicked the door open with that first film. Also, I love me some Patrick Wilson. That man can, God, I hope, do no wrong. Please don't ever correct me on that, society. But yeah, I really, really enjoy it. I think that they did a lot to establish what came after that in the first movie without being too foreshadowy and we're definitely getting our sequels. And before it got a little too ridiculous, because I just got to say, I think The Nun's a piece of shit. But anyways, yeah, no, I really normally would say that a movie like First Reformed would be more the wheelhouse that like stimulates me, because I like that intellectual horror a lot. But The Conjuring really did something, and so I'm gonna vote for The Conjuring.
Marisol?
Yeah, there's a lot of horror in this week. This is cool.
Yeah, there is.
I think we're talking about this much horror, but it's cool.
It's favorite week.
Yeah, The Conjuring. You know, you can't deny its impact. You guys are all right. Like, it was this explosion and set off this like phenomenon. The Conjuring is what I like to call popcorn horror, which is not quite my tempo. It's like, and I don't deny that it's massively like entertaining. But whenever I watch, especially when I watch the first Conjuring, and no, I mean especially when I watch the sequels, but even in the first Conjuring, I was like, I could telegraph all the scares in it, which doesn't make it actually scary for me. I'm like, this is entertaining and amusing, but I know that kid's going to look in that dark corner. The camera's going to, pan away. We're going to look back in the dark corner. We're going to pan away. And then we're going to look at the dark corner for like 6 more seconds. And just when it hits, you're done looking, and it's at the 7th second, then something comes out of like the shadows. Like, like you could telegraph so much of the scares in that franchise.
That's why I made her watch Smile, and then she was traumatized. That's a separate conversation.
So yeah, let's not go there. But yeah, so that once I understand, like I can kind of, I'm the biggest fucking scaredy cat in the world. But once I can tell that I can kind of okay, I know when something scary is going to happen, the film becomes just like, oh, this is entertaining. And it's entertaining, but I also don't buy into any of that stuff that The Conjuring is about, which you don't need to you don't need to be a believer or believe in any of this kind of stuff, the paranormal and ghosts, in order to just enjoy and really love a movie about the paranormal and ghosts. But then also for me, I'm just like, it was cool. Yeah, but I could take it or leave it, the Conjuring franchise. First Reformed, it's Paul Schrader. It's just, that movie fucked me up for like days after watching it. That's more my tempo, not because it's necessarily horror, but just because it's about the horrors of what's in here. Like in here, the horrors of religion, which, that's ceaselessly, that's a bottomless well, to mine, for really, really uncomfortable character studies. And Ethan Hawke is just magnetic in this film. I was on its wavelength, and I really got a lot out of it. And I think it's a searing, unique movie, where I think now, especially now, we have a lot of movies like The Conjuring, and I think the uniqueness of First Reformed should push it through. It's going to get my vote for all the reasons I said.
Adam?
I think First Reformed is terrific, and I think it's one I caught up with late. I think we watched it together. Neither of us had seen it, and really, really appreciated that movie on every level because I'm a big Ethan Hawke fan. I am. I really love this era of Ethan Hawke as well, just because he's just he has that elder statesman vibe, obviously, but he's just I just like him. I'm not gonna pontificate. I just like the guy, so I really get excited to see him in movies and to play a character who has so many complicated layers to him, and a character I relate to and sympathize with to an extent. But given the course his life takes, there's a lot to unpack. But I think Schrader at his best is a really, really thoughtful writer and filmmaker, and he does his best stuff when he really focuses on one person and really digs into why they're going through what they're going through. Yes, but also what could drive someone out of their general routine to do something drastic, going back to something like Taxi Driver, obviously. Mm-hmm. Because I can't help but reference it, Paul Schrader also, he made a pretty bad Exorcist movie, but as far as bad Exorcist movies go, it had a lot more on its mind than the other bad Exorcist movies. Just saying. Dominion's not great, but I'm just saying. I think First Reform's terrific, and if you haven't seen it, make a point of seeing it. Don't let people ruin it for you. And I understand everything you're saying about The Conjuring, because as someone who's super familiar with the genre, I found a lot of what The Conjuring did to be very predictable as well. But my experience watching it was this really, for me, I anticipate these twists and turns in horror movies as much as I possibly can. But what I like in a movie like The Conjuring, even though I expect all the places it to go, what I like about it is the cast, the fact that it's a story about family, both with the Warrens, which if you dig into so much is made sometimes of oh, well, it's not accurate to real life. I'm like, The Conjuring movies, that's not what those movies are about for me. You can have a separate conversation about who the Warrens were and what these movies represent about our better angels, no pun intended. But I think The Conjuring, especially the first one, is about the best aspects, the things we want in our families, regardless of how they might turn out. And this family's messy and they have their issues, but the thing I like about it is it gets back to the tradition of things like Amityville Horror, but more so Poltergeist. And I like that it made me feel things that I liked about both The Exorcist and Poltergeist, but it still felt like its own thing. And I think the sequels are all fun, the spin-offs varying degrees, but I think the first Conjuring special, because it's the journey of a family and the way, not in a cheesy way, but the way they overcome a certain issue. And the most real moment in the whole thing, we always talk about, why don't you leave the goddamn house? Yo. Why don't you leave the house? And the dad's just all our money's tied up in this shit. We have to figure this out. And that was enough. I just appreciate that one haunted house movie explained it that way. So I vote for The Conjuring.
You got a mortgage.
Yeah.
That's why.
But if people haven't seen First Reform, they should see it. I think we all agree on that.
All right. Well, seeing as though you aren't really going to be able to talk about either of those ones, I will let you start our next one.
Great.
Mother versus two very similar movies. Two very, very similar movies.
Yeah, this is a double feature.
Mother, love Simon.
Double for the ages. All right. Well, I can talk about one of these movies. I haven't seen Mother. It's been on my watch list for a long time. But the more that I hear about it, the more that I'm I want to and don't want to watch it. The more that I hear about it, I will though. I will get to it. Love Simon, however, has a very special place in my heart for very personal reasons that I won't get into.
Yeah.
At this point in time, we can talk about it off camera, not on camera. But it's very cute. It's very sweet. I think that it's a movie that a lot of people, I don't think, give enough credit to. They kind of go, well, his friends end up being really shitty, and he ends up like doing some shitty stuff, and it's not really like, it's like, okay, they're teenagers. Obviously, they're gonna like react in stupid ways and be shitty, and their friendships aren't gonna be perfect, and they're gonna make dumb decisions. Like that's just like that. Emotional reactions like that, I think, fit so well into a movie like this, especially when dealing with, with getting your heart broken or coming out or any of those things are so delicate, especially when you're a teenager and your emotions are all over the place and your brain's not fully developed and everything's a mess. And I think this movie really explores that so well. It explores coming to grips with your own sexuality, with dealing with how you want to tell your friends, if you want to tell your friends, dealing with how to interact with your family in that kind of situation. It deals with how do you, protect yourself while also, not mistreating your friends and doing it wrong and having to kind of deal with all of those things while still getting a heartwarming movie. You still get the hopeful ending, and you still get the love story, and you still get all those really fun elements that you get out of like the teenage like YA kind of rom-com movies. And I think it has really good balance of all of those things, where it does have the moments of realism, of reality, of the shitty things that these people go through. But then you also get the fun stuff. And I think the cast is really great. I think they all have really fun chemistry together. And it's a movie that I really like. I like just putting it on, and it's like kind of one of my comfort movies, really. And yeah, I'm gonna vote for Love, Simon.
Marisol.
This is really interesting because I'm really mixed on both of these movies. So this is a weird spot to be. This is different than like I love both of these. So what do I pick? This is like these have strengths and weaknesses. So what do I pick? I mean, Mother is such hedonistic, expressionistic, volcanic, like it's a volcanic typhoon. Yeah, a volcanic typhoon. Yes. Yeah. The fucking airbender of a movie. But it's a living, it's a nonstop actualized nightmare, feverish, hot nightmare that it won't stop. There's no pause button unless you paused it and you're watching it at home. But the movie, I mean, there's no pause button in the narrative of the film. And it's a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. And for better or worse, if you respond to that, I totally get this. Is a super polarizing movie. People fucking hate this movie. People think it's the gift of to God's earth. And I get it. And I'm like right there in the middle. I'm like, I totally see the value in something being this abrasive and upsetting. But it's also really impactful. Like something that's upsetting that hits on really hits on a nerve and hits onto all like the most anxious corners of our brains, of our hearts, in our relationships, in people invading our spaces. Mother is a personification of all of that terror, of these guests coming into this young wife's home and she can't get them out. And her husband seems to not give a shit that everybody's just like a swarm, like it's World War Z in this bitch. And Javier Bardem just doesn't seem to care. And they're literally tearing apart her house. It's such a nightmare, but it's also really effectively filmed and done. And there's a value in somebody making such a living nightmare like that movie, even though I never want to watch it again, ever. But I might too, just to experience something that unique. I like that. I like when movies can make me uncomfortable because I think it's effective filmmaking. So I would watch Mother again, maybe, or maybe never. But Love, Simon then, totally I know what you mean. I think it's an important movie. I think it's great to have a mainstream coming of out film. I think if you want to see one of the best coming out films of the decade, Pariah, a little movie called Pariah came out 7 years before this and is much better.
Telegraph.
Oh, are we not? I guess we haven't talked. Oh, it is in the bracket. We haven't talked about Pariah
Wait.
yet. We won't talk about Pariah. Hold on. Hold that thought. But I think that's a much more actually diving into the movie. I just find I like that Love, Simon. I think it's very important that it is a mainstream coming of out movie, and I welcome these stories all the time. I just find Love, Simon very safe, and I don't feel like Simon really sacrifices as much as I don't feel his sacrifice that much. He's in a very safe, comfortable environment. And I think it's highlighted by the fact that there is actually another gay kid in the movie who has much more at stake. And Simon even makes a point to say, like, there's another gay kid in school who's very out and very more effeminate than Simon is. Simon is not as flamboyant, outwardly gay as this other kid is, but that kid is out. And Simon's like, oh, well, that guy's just making, like, the character says something along the lines of, like, that guy's just making himself a target. And I feel like this movie is, like, healthy and, like, being a movie about a young kid overcoming his that hurdle of feeling comfortable to come out to his friends and family. But I also think it does it in, like, the safest way possible, where it's still creating an otherism with about kids who are struggling more outwardly with their gayness. So I think it kind of lands a little bit more muted as a triumphant movie for me. But that's getting into the weeds about Love, Simon. I have mixed feelings about it, though I'm still happy it exists. But I think it's all very, 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 very safe. And that's okay too. I think it's a good stepping stone, but I don't want to give it more credit than I don't want to think it breaks more barriers than it really truly does. So at the end of all this, thank you. Sorry for going on there, but oh shit, I didn't decide. Oh, in true me fashion, I unload and still don't decide which one I'm going to pick. I'm going to go for Mother. I'm going to go for Mother. But you know, Love, Simon can deserve some hits too, but I got to go for the one that I think is more exciting filmmaking to me and more risky filmmaking to me. I'm going to go for Mother.
Adam?
So 2 blind spots this week. She's out of my league and Love, Simon. Just have to own it. Didn't happen. I apologize. Plus, I also like Love, Simon. I'll admit it's rental only right now, and I'm fine with rentals. And you know what? If it goes through, I'll rent it. All right, I will. But it just didn't happen this week. So that's my disclaimer. And Mother is a film that I have mixed feelings about as well. I find its thematic arc to be painfully obvious, but I also think Darren Aronofsky knows that. Like I was taken to church growing up, and look, those of you who went to church and dig it, that's cool. That's nothing wrong with that. I didn't dig church as much growing up, and I found a way to respectfully abstain at a certain point, but for a while it wasn't always so graceful. And I think Darren Aronofsky had a similar experience growing up in the church, as would be indicated by the movie Mother. But I gotta say, like Marisol was saying, one thing I love about it is the dream logic. And coincidentally, my own mother saw this movie, and it's a movie that like we reference in conversation a weird amount because like she has this irrational fear of people showing up at her home and redecorating, setting out hors d'oeuvres. She doesn't know where they're from, doesn't know like why they're there, like, and just has no control over the situation. And my favorite scenes in Mother are when people are just sitting on the counter or taking apart the wall, and it's horrible. It's and it's all in this tapestry of all of this, religious allegory, which is, really on the nose, but for on the nose religious allegory, it's fairly engaging for the most part. And the final stretch of it, you know, like I think your mileage will vary depending on like how sensitive you are to what you're seeing. And there's an argument about shock value versus meaning and all that stuff. But my main issue with the final stretch of the movie is that it already made its point. And I found that final, some of the final horrible things you witness in it to be, to make the same point in more elaborate, gratuitous ways. So I'm torn as well, not even having seen Love, Simon. I'm going to give Mother a vote, though, to keep this interesting, because Mother's a movie that I've only seen once, and I still talk about it. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it. But it is kind of goofy, given how serious it is. But if Love, Simon wins, I will happily rent it. And then, Jacob, I will mail you the bill.
All right, Mara, you're up.
Mother is a lot.
I should have just said
That's
that.
that's not always bad. It's not. But I do have to dissent just a little bit about Love, Simon. I actually think it's really important in queer stories, especially about male characters, to have stories about characters that are not overtly effeminate, because I think that it's really easy for people that haven't grown up around queer persons that there's still a lingering stereotype about the like overtly effeminate gay man. And I think that telling a queer story about someone who doesn't present as overtly gay is really important. And I also think it's important, like he does have a generally, after a moment, supportive family. And yes, it's okay that he's an upper middle class white or white presenting character, because I also think that it's okay for us to follow his story, because there are plenty of people that come from all sorts of circumstances that can be unsettled about coming out, or in this case, being outed. And I kind of like that in a way, like it feels safe, but it's an incredibly unsafe situation and an unsafe story, because it can be dangerous for people to get outed, even now. So I kind of disagree a little bit that diminishes the impact of the story a little bit. That's actually one of the things that I really embraced about it, was specifically that it's important to see him. And I also think that one of the strengths of that portrayal, not just from a representational standpoint, is that the movie is about a coming of age relationship first and foremost. He just happens to be queer, because relationships are relationships no matter who is in the relationship. And that's the whole point of Love is Love, is all love is the same. All love is valid. All love deserves to exist and to coexist with the same amount of value. And so I like that that's kind of the takeaway from the movie that I got, as far as how it's not necessarily saying this is a queer relationship, this is a queer coming of age movie, and it is. But the thing that they're focusing on the most is like his emotional journey as a human being and a human character. He is just also queer. And I don't know, I felt like that was a really unique way to tell that story, because it's more subtle, and I think it makes it, I mean, maybe in that way, I guess it's safe, but it makes it easier to approach for perhaps someone that could have grown up in a place that is not as friendly to those types of stories or situations or people, to be open to seeing what that experience could be like, or to maybe educate themselves about, oh, OMG, they're just like us. So I kind of think that that's a big strength of the film. So I'm going to go with Love, Simon, because I just sometimes, in a way, I kind of like that Mother's a lot, in a way, but I kind of like that the strength of Love, Simon is that it's not a lot in that way.
Yeah, I'm going to make this real quick. I think I've voted for every single high school movie, and that's not,
keep it going.
That's not ending right now. I just love this movie a lot. So yeah, I'm going with Love, Simon.
Jacob, I'm sending you 5 DVDs of Mother.
I actually
Locked out.
I have Mother down there somewhere. Like I do own it, so I do.
By the way, did anyone check their mail? Did anyone check their mail today? Did anyone check their mail?
Oh God,
No, not yet.
God. All
See
right.
where you guys start. You see this? You happy?
I ship things to her at our own address.
And you're like, oh, something came for you.
Oh, a package is in the mail from somebody.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, it's a
well,
DVD of Simon Birch. Thanks. Why do I
Adam?
have this?
Oh yeah.
Adam
Why
and
can't
Beth,
everybody copy Blue Jasmine?
Yes.
All right. Never forget.
Okay.
That's the Blue Jasmine. You better. That's what you better do. How about you spend your energy doing that?
All right, Adam. I'm going to give you some runway on this one. Moneyball versus Patterson.
Okay. Wow. All right. I see what you did there. You're trying to make this. That's all right. Okay. I really think Moneyball is solid. I actually I caught up with Moneyball like 4 years after it came out, give or take, and really appreciated it when I did. I like Brad Pitt as an actor. I tend to watch his movies at least once. I think Moneyball is one of his best performances from the decade because it's not super dramatic. It's very serious and very articulate, but not in that Sorkin-y way. And I love the way his character plays off of everyone else. Yes, Jonah Hill is good in it, and I'll let everyone else speak to that because I think he's solid. But for me, aside from Brad Pitt, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I just love him and everything. But I also love the way he presents his character, the way he wears the uniform, his paunchiness, he's just his physicality. I love Hoffman's dynamic with Pitt in this movie. And I also appreciate that whether or not you're super into baseball, I love that this movie is literally about inside baseball, but you don't have to be into inside baseball to appreciate it. and we said that about Big Sick, but I think Moneyball is arguably better in some ways in terms of the way it's making something super specific, really universal for a wide audience. So, I really like Moneyball a lot. And I look at some of these matchups, Jacob, and I want to slap you around with a rubber chicken because I just don't understand why you're doing this to me when you could put these heavy hitters against some chumps and help us out a little bit. But that's on you, and I'll go rando. Moneyball's great. Patterson is a movie that doesn't get nearly the amount of daylight that Moneyball does. And so let me just give you a primer. Some of you may have heard of it because it came out in the past decade, and it features a very prominent popular actor, Adam Driver, and he's terrific in it. But what I can't say enough about is the filmmaker, Jim Jarmusch. He's one of my favorite filmmakers ever. And it's not because everything he's ever made is of the same level of quality, but the thing that's special about Jim Jarmusch is he's been active since the mid 80s, and he continues to engage with the times he's in, and he always has something to say about it while also staying true to himself. And he's a very conversational filmmaker. And with Patterson, it's one of his most conversational movies he's ever made. On its surface, it's a story about a bus driver named Patterson in Patterson, New Jersey. Haha. But beyond that, it's really about celebrating finding your place in life. And that's what I love about Patterson so much. I spent so much of my 20s trying to find meaning in what I was doing to earn a living. And I think there is meaning to that for a lot of people. That's important. And I think if you strive for a certain career your entire life and achieve it, you should be proud of that. And that should be part of your identity. But there are many of us who earn a living doing stuff, and I'm speaking personally. I'm not going to get into specifics, but I earn my living doing something I didn't go to college for, but I'm fine with it because it affords me the lifestyle I want and the freedom to do what I really want to do. And Patterson is a story about two people who just love each other, and they're not trying to cure cancer or figure out, the next level of their career. They just love each other, and they love living with each other. And what they do to pay their mortgage is incidental. It's about what they look forward to doing with each other every day. And the movie is very much about routine, but it's not about the boredom or the monotony of routine. It's about creating a little corner for yourself in the world and making it special. And it doesn't do it heavy-handedly. And it's such a celebration of poetry, which is something Jarmusch loves to dig into. And Patterson himself is an aspiring poet. But every time we engage with his poetry, it's a little bit of insight into what he's really thinking, because his outward behavior is very muted and reserved. I love Patterson. I think it's very special. It's streaming for free on Prime. Of course, I bought the Blu-ray because even though it's going to be streaming on Prime, for the foreseeable future, you should. I think I'm so confident in Patterson that even if it doesn't win in this particular bracket, I think if people see it, they will like it enough to buy the Blu-ray. I vote for Patterson because it's wonderful.
Taylor?
Yes. Everything that Adam said. Patterson. Yes.
Hey, Taylor, see, it's not all a horror. It's not all a nightmare. It's not all blood and demons. All right?
There's poetry in there, Sometimes it happens.
Mara?
I believe in parliamentary procedure, and I also vote on the motion for Patterson. Based on Adam's remarks, I agree completely.
All right, Marisol?
Patterson.
Hey.
End of. This is a hard Patterson for me.
Well, that
Oh no!
Now it's your turn to just.
yeah, that one hurt.
You want to wax poet?
Yeah, it hurts. It's your blue Jasmine
Yeah,
moment. It hurts, doesn't it?
It does.
You want to have your moment before
Fucking hurts.
before we say goodbye?
Yeah. I really love Moneyball. I really love this movie a lot. Which is ironic because I'm the one non-American here.
Yeah, I know.
And I love the
Maybe
We
they
love
have-
our sports, you weirdo.
They don't even have baseball in Australia. Maybe.
I think Jeremy sums it up best. This is a movie that got you to care about the Oakland A's somehow. I think this is Brad Pitt. I love Brad Pitt's performance in this. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. It's a very Robert Redford type performance. I think it's very like you like kind of feel like, oh, that's where you're going with your career now. Okay, that's interesting. I think it's also the dialogue is clearly Sorkin, but it doesn't feel obvious Sorkin. And I think that's the real fascinating part about it, is that it's like, oh, Aaron Sorkin wrote this, but it's not quick. It's not like rapid going back and forth. It's very, outside of one or two scenes, it's very like muted and deliberate and slow. And I think I really appreciate a lot about this movie. Jonah Hill, I think it's one of his best performances. It's such just an absolutely complete counter to everything he had done up until that point. This is just, I really like this movie. I said about The Martian how I thought Matt Damon's performance was effortless. This is Brad Pitt's performance. It's so effortless and so like, oh, yep, no, you are just a king at this. And yeah, I love Moneyball a lot. It's one of the most rewatchable movies for me. It's one if it's on and I start watching it, I'll just watch it through to the end. I really love this movie a lot. So yeah, sad to see Moneyball go.
I believe you mean the Mashin.
Stupid.
Patterson does move on. All right, now this is where I get I duck and hide.
Ugh.
Hell or High Water versus Sicario.
You son of a bitch.
I have to urinate.
Yeah.
I had to throw up.
Taylor, I'm gonna let you start with this one.
No. Fucking hell.
I feel like you're picking on her because of Taylor Sheridan, but that's fine.
Actually didn't even think about that, but yeah, let's go with that.
You son of a bitch.
Okay, so I don't even know how to start dissecting this one. I've had like a week to think about it, and I don't even know how to start doing it. Ugh. Okay. So Sicario is amazing. And I think that Emily Blunt is amazing in it. I think it's really just such a captivating film about dealing with the border conflict. And I think it's one that I don't revisit very often, but that's more just because it's a pretty heavy movie to me. Like, it's not particularly rewatchable, which isn't a bad thing. Hell or High Water is the same to me, though. I don't particularly think it's rewatchable necessarily, but I think it's such a brilliantly made film. And I think a lot of the charm from Hell or High Water for me comes from the cast. I think that Jeff Bridges, Chris Pine, and Ben Foster are really a great trio that really carry the movie and really push the narrative forward. I mean, and Gil Birmingham is great as well. He's fantastic.
Yeah, Gil. He's good in everything. Sorry.
He's great in everything. This particularly. This one sucks so bad. I'm so just, I'm not gonna drag this out because it's gonna hurt me to do it. Just because of the Chris Pine of it all. We're going with Hell or High Water. Like, I have to find a reason to pick something, and that's what we're doing.
This is a preview of how rough round 2 is going to be.
Yeah.
Adam?
Round 2 makes sense, though. You don't need to cannibalize good shit right out of the gate, man. You monster. And yeah, like, these movies are matched up, like, regardless of the way they land in the bracket. Just naturally, it's a very tough matchup because of not only Taylor Sheridan writing both movies, but like, they have a lot of overlapping themes. But I think there's some distinctions too. I think Hell or High Water is grim as it gets. I think it's a tad more optimistic than Sicario. Not that that's hard to do, but I think Hell or High Water leaves some room for hope of a better future. I also think Hell or High Water is just such a cool ensemble movie. And I think as a big fan of the movie No Country for Old Men, I think both of these movies are the descendants of No Country's success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing and there are shows in abundance, TV shows, I mean, just like that are in this vein. And I'm here for it because, it's cool doing neo-noir Western stuff. It's pretty awesome. And the thing I really like about Hell or High Water is the brother dynamic between Pine and Foster. Really, really endeared me to both of the characters early on in the film. And I like the way that's juxtaposed with Bridges and Birmingham's characters and you see the loyalty on both sides. And again, you know, it's not quite Point Break level because it's a little more serious than that. But you have that struggle, because I love how much Bridges' character sympathizes with the brothers, you know, as much as a man in his position would. And it just escalates and escalates, and really, really love it. What I really love about Sicario, though, is it is a descent into hell in every sense, and it's so you feel it on every level. And I think I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad, like a lot of, you know, human beings. But the thing I really love about Breaking Bad as a fan of like genre fare, if you will, is when it goes to those really dark, scary, inhuman places. And Sicario just lives there the entire time. And it's suffocating from the opening scene, quite literally, and then just where it goes from there. The score is incredible, and just the way it gets under your skin. Sicario is a horror film, in my opinion, and I think there's an argument to be made about how. I'm not saying it's the best Denis Villeneuve movie. It might be for me because I'm weird like that, but I really think it's easily one of his strongest because it's so focused. I think it's much stronger than Prisoners by comparison. Much more focused, and I think it has a lot more to say about what it's unpacking. Prisoners feels like it's, you know, eating its own tail a bit. It's an exercise in misery, to be sure, but Sicario really digs into the hypocrisy on both sides of the drug trade, and Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt's just there to witness it all. And we're not here to talk about Day of the Soldado, which is a bit more dense as a narrative, and I don't mean that as a compliment. It's a little more blunt and not very thoughtful. But I think the original Sicario.
Well, it's missing Blunt. That's the problem. Oh, yes, that was me. I did it. Thank you.
But the original Sicario has my vote here by an edge. Even though you and Uncle Rando fixed this, so we could knock out another heavy hitter right out of the gate. It's like watching Eric Bana and Brad Pitt fight in Troy. I hate.
I'm gonna actually stop filming.
Okay. All right. I will vote for Sicario. There you go. You happy? You twisted.
Marisol.
No, Adam said a lot of it very well. I'm just letting you know I'm gonna be there. I'm just gonna echo it all because you hit a nail on the head. I have to vote for Sicario because it is one of my favorite films of this past decade. It's one of my favorite 2010s films, and it still gives me goosebumps. Hell or High Water is a strong movie, but I gotta just base it off of my reactions, my gut reactions to a feeling that a film gives me, and I still get literal goosebumps when they first go into Juarez and in Sicario, when they first get into that city, and you just know, just the aerial shots, just looking at it from afar, it just looks like Mordor. Like, you know, it just looks like there's an actual cloud over it. And Johan Johansson's music is just like, it's just humming and it makes your stomach drop. That's cinematic. That's gold. And I'm getting goosebumps. That's powerful. And as strong as Hell or High Water is, there's not a moment like that in that film, even though it's another gritty, ugly place crime drama. And you just know something's terrible is going to happen when you see Ben Foster all dirty in a movie, and or with a Southern accent in a movie. You know nothing's good is going to happen when you see Ben Foster.
Like post Get Over It, Ben Foster is out for blood.
Yeah, I know. No, definitely Sicario. Hopefully it goes through. I would love to talk about it more.
I've gone back and forth all week on these two because I love both of these movies quite a lot.
I hope you suffered and listened.
I did. And I just, it's not going to be fair to it. But yeah, I am going to go Sicario. I think Sicario is just such a strong film, and so is Hell or High Water. They're both incredible movies, but if you tell me which one right now I wanted to put on gun to my head, I'm going to say Sicario. So yeah, I'm going to go Sicario. Mara?
I'm glad I didn't have to break a tie because this is very difficult for me. I was surprised. I was late to the party on Sicario. However, I did see Hell or High Water the second it came out, and I saw it more than once in the theater, which, considering how many movies that I generally see, that's usually a very good thing. Fun fact, that is also one of Dan's mother's favorite movies, like ever. So
that's pretty hardcore. All right, Dan's mom. Okay.
Mad Max Fury Road, also one of her favorite movies of all time.
Nice.
She's like, it reminds me of living in
and the
Arkansas.
African Queen. Let's jump to Sicario first. I was really, really surprised by this movie because do you know what actor just never has worked for me? Benicio del Toro. Like, there's something about him that I find uncomfortable. There's something about
Tell
him
me
that
it isn't true.
Like,
Come on.
Oh, God.
No. Okay. Like, I just mean in terms of like, I'm not acting hasn't worked. I'm not saying his acting. He is an excellent actor. I just mean that there's something about him that I have not wanted to interact with and that I just don't like. I can't qualify it any better than that. I love him in this movie. I want to vibe with him. I want to chill out with him. I want to get pissed drunk and just like shenanigans with him. I want to I want to do irresponsible things, like, you know, just fuck shit up at the border with him in a hypothetical universe, not in any way that would be like inappropriate. I just mean like, let's just, you know, let's target shoot some beer bottles, you know, like let's just be wild. I don't know why. I just actually really like the character he plays and the way he plays it in this movie. For once, I'm like, yeah, I want to hang. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me, but yeah. And I actually like following a female protagonist's story, which is also really, really hard for me. So this movie did a lot to get me on board, a lot of heavy lifting. So I was taken very much by surprise with how magnetized I felt to it. Hell or High Water, on the other hand, tailor-made for me. Just this story is absolutely made for Mara. You've got some action. You have some family elements that are masculine. So I relate to the emotional spectrum of the male experience far greater than that of the female experience. Man, I love the casting in this. I think it's fantastic. I've rewatched it at least half a dozen times, and that's not diminishing the rewatchability of Sicario because I love pain and I love discomfort. But just, I do think that perhaps if it hadn't already been decided, it's possible that I might have voted for Sicario because of just how much it surprised me. But I do think that if I had been the first person to vote, I would have voted for Hell or High Water. And I want to give it an additional vote since it does not matter. And that is what I would have done had I been the first person to vote. So I would vote for Hell or High Water.
All right. Well, with that, Sicario does move through.
Also, not for nothing, great diner scenes in Hell or High Water. I appreciate diner scenes. Great diner scenes.
All right. Last two we have.
Woo.
This one's a rough one. I'm very sorry, Taylor. Lady Bird versus Short Term 12.
Oh, Jesus.
I will start as someone who finally watched Lady Bird this year. Yeah, I'm gonna go Lady Bird because I really like
the first round matchup.
Yeah.
This will not be a first round matchup.
We're going to Boston. All right, we'll be back. No, I'm getting a beer.
Lady Bird. I just thought was just such a unique experience of showing you a teenage, as someone who grew up with a teenage sister, And yeah, it was a really interesting portrayal of coming of age for women, and I just the movie just like it in a way, especially given I do not like her as a character. Like you're not like at the end of it, you're just like, man, you are not a great person, but also she has enough qualities there where it's like, but you're also a teenager, and I kind of get it. So yeah, I'm going with Lady Bird. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to Adam. I'm gonna go to let's go to the two males first, and then the women can talk about these movies.
The emotional
Don't
women
lump
that
me
we are
in because of
implying,
your
Jacob. Okay.
genitalia.
Oh, do not take that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a non-starter. That's a non-starter with this panel. Way to go, man. Way to read the room. Okay.
Fair. I'll give you that one, actually.
All right. So short-term 12 is the perfect example of, I think we all have this. A movie everyone's like just talks about like casually, like, yeah, man. Yeah, like I'm so excited that short-term 12 exists. Look, I'm not diminishing it at all, because my point is, for years I just hadn't seen it. And I'm happy to say I saw it earlier than this bracket. I saw it last year, or like a year and a half ago, for the first time, and I was really impressed. Thought it was a great ensemble movie. As a film fan and a fan of actors, I really, really enjoy when you get to go back and catch up with a movie, and you just happens to have this stacked cast of people who have all gone on to be like really huge. And then you get to go back and watch a movie where like they were still like successful actors, but it was before, a lot of them had their big breaks, or bigger breaks, I should say. And so to see, Lakeith Stanfield and Rami Malek and Brie Larson, all these folks in this movie, it was really, it's just cool, to see this great ensemble cast. I found the movie to be impactful overall. The only thing I found curious about it was Rami Malek's character, because he's this outlier in the movie narratively, who is there for the audience in a lot of ways, but in a movie that's so like intuitively human on so many levels, I found his character to be a very peculiar outlier who didn't feel as he didn't feel like honestly, he didn't feel like a real character as much compared to the rest of the characters. Now, I've only seen it once. Maybe I'll rewatch it and I'll feel differently about Rami's character.
No, he was like an avatar.
That's how it felt when I saw it. But like I responded so much to all the other characters, and every time the movie stopped to focus on him, it took me out of it a little bit. But I would be happy to rewatch it again. And Lady Bird, I really like overall as well. I think the best scenes are, when Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf are really going at it. Laurie Metcalf's probably my, I'm not going to say she's my favorite part of this movie, because Saoirse Ronan is great in everything, and she's excellent in this as well. But look, I grew up watching Roseanne, the original run, okay? And I really loved Laurie Metcalf on the original show. She and John Goodman were my favorite characters. And to see her, like, I've always known she's had chops. So to see her like come to the forefront in this film and play such a well-rounded, relatable mother, I really, really love that. And it grounds me in the movie in terms of the journey that Lady Bird's going on. Like the whole coming of age aspect. That's all very relatable, but I connect to the mom. I do. And that may have to do with the fact that I'm a dad, but like, I relate to it from her Lady Bird's perspective as well. Cause like I applied to colleges, like I was there and all that, but all of the conversations they have, all the struggles they go through, I really love Laurie Metcalf's performance. So I've been Lady Bird. I've had more time to sit with, and Metcalf gives it a slight edge for me, but I think Short Term 12 is terrific. So,
Ma.
This is where I hope that I don't make Taylor angry, and I fail the panel just a little bit. I had a lot of movies to watch this week, and I was still very, very, very ill. I have not seen Short Term 12, which, if I'm being totally honest, I feel like I would like a lot more than Lady Bird because I don't love the movie. I also really just don't like the character Lady Bird. Find her quite insufferable. She is the girl in high school that I would really not vibe with, and that hurts me a little bit to watch. Though I appreciate how much people feel represented by her. And Laurie Metcalf is the thing that salvages the movie experience for me. And maybe, again, that's me watching it as an adult and not watching it as a coming of aged person. But I have to vote for Lady Bird, I think, because I've seen it. I know that occasionally we vote for the thing we'd want to see or want to watch more, but I just feel like just because I don't love Lady Bird, I don't know. I just don't feel great voting for Short Term 12 just because I might like it better. So I'm going to vote for the one that I have certainly seen and that has merits. Like it has merits. Just because I don't love it doesn't mean that it does not have mass appeal and that the performances are not good, even though they don't appeal to me. So I'm going to vote for Lady Bird.
Yeah. This one kind of sucks. So that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it kind of brief though, just because otherwise I'll just go on a tangent. So the first time I saw Lady Bird, I didn't love it, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I rewatched it a while later, and it was really like an experience where I was like, oh, there are parts of Christine that I really relate to, and I hate that. Like where it was like I kind of see parts of myself in her that I don't love. And it was something where I was like, that's not necessarily fair to the movie. And the more that I've watched it, the more I really appreciate it and do actually enjoy it. Because sometimes when you get confronted like that, you're like, "Ooh, that's uncomfortable," and I don't like that actually. But I really do. Like we watched it together when you watched it the first time, and I really, really loved it. I think that the mother-daughter stuff is the strongest stuff in the film for sure. I think they both have great performances, and I think it's a really interesting dynamic that they have. It's an uncomfortable dynamic, but it's an important one, I think, to show because mother-daughter relationships can be so complicated. And I just think it's a really great exploration of that. Yeah, so I think like just for that alone, like I have to vote for it. But also, I mean, Timothée Chalamet is like the worst kind of fuckboy in this movie, which is hilarious. He's in it for like 5 minutes, and you're like, no, thank you.
Yes.
Actually, goodbye.
Marisol.
Ugh. Oh shit. Am I last? Wait, no.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Where are we at? Oh my god.
Ladybird's going through.
Oh shit. Good, because I still didn't decide which one I wanted at the end of this. I thank God. Like, this is best case scenario. I'm like, look, it was out of your hands. There's nothing you could do. It was out of your hands. It wasn't gonna matter anyway. Yeah, because I these are strong as hell, both of these movies. I personally love Lady Bird more, like just a hair more. But yeah, no. It's cool. It's going through. Everybody's already kind of said a lot about it. The mother-daughter relationship is the strongest aspect of Lady Bird. But I think what Lady Bird has that I like it more than something that I would compare it to maybe Edge of 17 is that I think the character Ladybird is arrogant in her own way, but there's an ignorance to it and a lack of experience and naivete tied into it, which makes it just more relatable and accessible and humanizing. And I think that she, so much in the movie, she's pointed out how full of shit she is by so many people around her, especially her mother. And she's allowed to go with her misconceptions and her inexperienced takes on things and fail and hit a wall and then learn from that. I think that's kind of the truest forms of coming of age. And that is very present in Lady Bird. Plus it lines up with kind of like my remote age range of growing up, because I'm a little younger than Greta Gerwig, but still. Good for Greta. Short Term 12. I'm gonna vote for it just to make it 3-2 here, even though I would have probably voted for Lady Bird, I think. But I'm gonna give Short Term 12 another vote, because my God, talk about a starting off point for so many careers. This is like the starter for 10 of dramas, and just the beauty of mentoring young children in Short Term 12 is just unlike anything you'll see in any other movie. And that form of mentoring kids in need is so invaluable, and it's just so intimately portrayed by all these rising stars. And there's tons to mine from it. I'm sad. I hate this, Jacob. I hate this. This should not be a first round matchup. I hate you. I hate you. I don't hate you. I don't hate you. Wait,
That's slip. Okay.
No, I don't hate you, but I hate this. But I'll still say fuck you, Jacob. But yeah, I'll just give Short Term 12. So this is match, even though Lady Bird's going on.
All right. Well, last one, guys.
Let's do it.
True Grit versus The Irishman.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm gonna just. I don't love True Grit. There is a lot about True Grit that I like. I think it features an absolute star-making, incredible performance from Haley Steinfeld. I think she is incredible in that movie, and just wise beyond her years in the way she plays Hattie. But the overall movie, I'm not quite as in love with as I think I'd really want to be. Like, there's something about it that just doesn't quite land with me outside of all the fantastic performances. I really love The Irishman. I really did appreciate a lot of it. I think, look, I'm not in love with the de-aging. The de-aging doesn't work for me, but the movie itself, the story that it's telling, and of grief and regret, and looking back at one's life, I think it's a really reflective and a really interesting portrayal of the crime genre. And so I'm going to go with The Irishman, because I really do love this movie. So yeah. Mara.
This is interesting. I remember I got to go to, it's one of the only premieres I've ever gone to. I went to the premiere of The Irishman, and it was actually pretty cool, because normally like, because there's like the big theater, and then there's all the other little small theaters, and of course naturally I was in one of the smaller theaters, because like, I am not important, and that's totally fine. But Marty came into every single theater, which was really legit, and introduced the movie. And I was one of the later ones. So the movie did not end for forever, because we waited like 45 minutes for him to introduce it. And he was like, this is a movie of considerable length. It was delightful. And I liked it. I think I liked it a lot. I didn't feel like I connected with the emotional relationship I was supposed to between him and his daughter. which if that's supposed to give me like any driving force to connect with the framing device for the movie, then it kind of failed me in that way. And it's funny because when we were just talking about Lady Bird, I realized that maybe one of the other reasons why I didn't connect with it is because like both my moms have been dead for like a really long time. So like with Mother's Day having just happened, I'm like, oh yeah, like of course I kind of forget that even exists because like I just don't have any reason to think about it. But my dads are both still alive. So when I think about connecting with a paternal type figure, I'm like, I should understand what that is like. And I just don't get any of that in this movie. And the sprawlingness of the story, like, is fine for me. And yeah, you mentioned the de-aging. We won't talk about that. True Grit, Westerns are tough for me. Westerns are not a genre that I generally will go to for any reason whatsoever, whether that be new or old, spaghetti or otherwise. I really enjoy this movie. I guess part of it is just like kind of weird seeing people like Matt Damon just be like, I'm in a Western. I'm like, yeah, buddy. Yeah, you are. Good for you, man. Do it. But I think it is the Haley Steinfeld of it all. Because again, she just like splashed in kind of like we talked about with oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like the COVID brain is real. We talked about Jennifer Lawrence last week in thank you. And those performances just stick with me. Like as much as she's had splashier roles of late, that this one is actually the one that I constantly think about. So I'm going to vote for True Grit, partially because I'm just like, how on earth did you get me to love a Western?
Adam.
I'll start out by saying I quite enjoy both of these movies. I really do. And the reason I enjoy The Irishman is because for me, it's this really nice. It's such a pleasant film.
What a romp.
Yeah, it works out for everyone. But no, what I like about The Irishman is how I love Goodfellas as much as the next guy, of course. But I'm a big fan of Casino, and I know that's not always the popular movie to bring up because it's really long too. But I like the way Casino shifts the setting and the industry, but also maintains this completely immersive perspective with the main character. And I feel that with The Irishman. And I'm a big fan of Boardwalk Empire. I watched all 5 seasons. Go watch it. It's great. And I like that Scorsese who produced that show, got to pull some of his folks from that series into Irishman. And I feel like the historical perspective, even though Boardwalk takes place quite a while before The Irishman does historically, I could feel as Mara was saying, the sprawling nature of the narrative. And I feel like The Irishman would make a very clean 2-part miniseries. As a standalone film, it is what it is, and it's not a bad thing. It's very, very fascinating, and I've seen it twice, and chunks of it this week for reasons. But I think De Niro's terrific in it. I think Pesci's really, really good. I think Pacino is awake in a way that he hasn't been in years. And that's awesome. I feel bad that people, kind of give the actors a hard time because of their posture, because their age, and like the de-aging conversation is such a distraction from what I think the movie really is about. Much like Hugo, once after about a half hour of like getting used to the visual perspective of what Scorsese was doing, I just kind of get on the movie's level. And I appreciate why that can be something that takes people out of it, but it's not a major drawback to the movie for me. The main thing that keeps me from adoring The Irishman, I guess, is the fact that it is just so casual is not the word, but it's ponderous to a point where the movie has to kind of occasionally remind me that I'm watching a movie. And so I think Scorsese gets lost in the pacing a little bit with The Irishman, but I think it's a great ensemble cast. I love what it represents in terms of where he and all the actors are at this stage in their careers, and the way they can all collaborate and make something really interesting and enrich a period of history that I only knew a little bit about. So Irishman's awesome. And when it comes to True Grit, a lot of people don't talk about the original movie. I've only seen it like once, and it was a long time ago. Shout out to Kim Darby. I know you're going to love this. She's the original Maddie Ross, and she's also Jason Bateman's biology professor in Teen Wolf 2.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. You don't like her.
Yes.
You were like, she was like grooming him.
She was trying to get into Jason Bateman's pants in Teen Wolf 2. That's why.
She is.
She was a creepy professor.
But she's very plucky in the original True Grit. But what I love about the Coens True Grit is it really, and I use the word evolve specifically because I don't mean evolves in the sense that, oh my God, I was offended by the original True Grit. The new True Grit evolves it in the sense that Maddie Ross is the true protagonist of this movie, not Rooster Cogburn. Mm-hmm. And she drives every aspect of the narrative. She puts up with nothing. And she's not, I hate using this phrase, but she's the opposite of a Mary Sue. And she deals with hardship after hardship, and she's just incredibly articulate and willful. And I think those are two qualities that get you really far in life. And I think the fact that you have a Western that's focused on someone who's of a very young age, who gets by and thrives with those two qualities, makes it a really compelling movie to watch. And I also think that it's just a cool, badass adventure movie. And the Coens did a great job. Nominated to the Nines, won nothing. That kind of sucks.
Both of these dudes. Both of them had.
Yes. Is that why you put them together, Uncle?
The Academy loves being like, psych.
I'll give True Grit my vote, but I like The Irishman too.
Mm-hmm.
The common theme tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Marisol?
Yeah. I've been saying this a lot tonight, but Adam said it so well. I don't need to say anything. But yeah, baby, nailed it. I mean, both so strong and so special. I will say about The Irishman, like, I go through this with so many Scorsese movies where I constantly contextualize them within his career, and The Irishman is so special because it caps a trilogy of his De Niro, Pesci crime like movies. And Goodfellas, Casino, and then Irishman, I think, are all of a piece, as many people have already said like about this movie. And I do really appreciate when a filmmaker can be, in the context of their own career, reaches a point where they're more mature and approaches subject matter that they have well mined in a different way. And that's absolutely what The Irishman is. And you see a man in his 80s looking at the gangster lifestyle in a very different way than he did in his 30s and his 40s and his 50s. And the morbid, the doom, the impending doom of The Irishman, and the, lethargy of it, and the pace, and the sense of death just looming like a reaper over this movie is felt in the approach of it, the pace of it, the style of it. Does that make it the most entertaining movie in the world? Does that make it my favorite Scorsese movie? No. But it makes it one of the ones that I appreciate maybe more than some of his other ones. Again, it's all about context in his career. And I love the end. I think the end, like the last hour or so, The Irishman is the strongest part of it.
The ending alone is an hour. Yeah.
but yes, I totally agree, Mara, with what you're saying about if you're going to put the stuff about the daughter in there, I think I understand what he was doing, but I felt very little with it. I see the representation of the silence and the symbolism of her silence, but she felt that way since when she was a child. So I think the movie just keeps that beat for the entire film. But then he just reconciles with it suddenly in his old age when it was present when she was a kid. So there's certainly, I don't think everything's a home run in The Irishman, but I do think it is a fascinating movie, and I cannot wait to. I can wait. It was long. It took me like a day and a half to watch it, but when I watch it again, I think it will be even more enriching, and that's good movie making. But I will put on True Grit tomorrow, and I think True Grit is a fucking firecracker of a movie for all the things that you said. And I like when Matt Damon doesn't seem like he's Matt Damon in a movie, and Matt Damon seems like he's Matt Damon in a lot of movies. You know, he just feels like he's like, hey, it's Matt Damon. I like this guy. Look at him just reading his lines, and he's a good actor. But he truly disappears into his character in True Grit. And everything you said about Haley Steinfeld, I appreciate The Irishman so much, but my heart is going to have me vote for True Grit over it. But I do want to give it its flowers because I think it is a special movie, just not Scorsese's best.
Tell.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter now, but I also am not super True Grit. Like, the story doesn't do anything for me. I'm not a Westerns person. Like, I think Haley Steinfeld's great in it, but I would not put that on again. Like, if you asked me to, I'd be like, all right, it's time for 4 hours of The Irishman, I guess. Let's fucking go. Because I'm not watching True Grit again. That's not happening. Unless you just have me watch the scenes where just Haley Steinfeld is doing, like, cool shit. But other than that, no thank you. That story is boring as shit.
Well, with that, True Grit does move on to next week.
I'm so happy that we end up on that note.
Next week is all Westerns and horror.
Ooh, I want
unavailable.
Taylor, have you seen Bone Tomahawk? Because
No.
Oh, the horror Western? No. Yeah.
All right.
it'd be the hoot. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, we made it. Let's go through real quick.
All right, the last
one.
One for round one.
Yep.
Here we
So
go.
next week is our final bracket for round one, and then we go talk about movies we've already talked about. So last 32 movies
Here we
from the
go.
bracket. We have Annihilation, Arrival, Arthur Christmas, Blade Runner 2049, Bridesmaids, Crimson Peak, Good Time, Hail Caesar, Grand Budapest Hotel, The Favorite, I, Tonya, If Beale Street Could Talk, Inside Out, Like Crazy, Lincoln, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Nightcrawler, Paddington 2, Pariah, Phantom Thread, Real Steel, Rise of the Guardians, Ruby Sparks, Rush, The Social Network, Super 8, This Is the End, Uncut Gems, The Wind Rises, The Witch, and Zootopia.
This one is gonna hurt me specifically.
ouch.
Yeah, I'm gonna need alcohol for this one, actually, I think, for the first time.
So, okay.
Another 10 movie week for me.
We also have, sorry, there is one other movie that because this is clearly an old one and I forgot to put in, is the return of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
Triumphant return. Against Bridesmaids. Ugh.
It does return.
Oh no.
Fun. That's
I
gonna
don't
be
like
bloody. That's
I
gonna
don't
be
like
bloody.
That one makes me
I
want to
don't
die.
like that either.
Yeah, that
Why?
one-
Rush,
No.
yes. I don't know.
No.
Well, I guess I'm watching Rush this week. Oh, Jacob. Jacob London.
Oh, I'm
Not
okay
fair.
with that one. That one has a
I already know. It's sad that I actually know what I'm voting for, and it's yeah.
I don't want
This
it.
one also features. I'm going to spoil this one because it features the only time in the entire bracket that a director goes against their own movie.
No!
Oh no!
No.
Only time it happens in the entire bracket. So thank you so much, guys. I know this one went long, but we did not have a single sweep in any of the matchups. So it's
We're
the only
closer.
time
I knew it. These are
first
these are
time-
gonna be closer matchups.
the first time it's happened all bracket. So Marisol, Adam, where can they find you guys online?
You can find us online at jacobisaho.com. No, I'll tell you what.
That domain, you know it.
You
Look,
find them on the show regretting that they ever met you through the Schmodown.
I'll tell you what. We've been taking kind of a casual break from Champs on Film in terms of output because we've been watching a shit ton of 2010s movies for some reason. But Champs on Film is still alive and well, and we will definitely do something again in the foreseeable future. But Champs on Film in the meantime on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and then us individually on Letterboxd, please.
And you can find me on my new Kickstarter page, Justice for Blue Jasmine. So just click over to there and it'll be all good.
Yep, and all the money is going to go towards mailing shitty movies to Jacob.
So please fund that endeavor.
Yes.
Mara, where can they find you?
Refer to
Mara's become shy.
I'm very, 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 very upset by that.
That's you could have
You're
prevented that, Jacob.
Palpable anxiety against
that's been there
palpable
since-
anxiety.
That's been there since the beginning, and I looked at it and I was like, "It's no way I can change that because I needed that reaction. I needed that reaction."
Well, if you'd like to tweet it out as promotional material, by all means do. I'm very upset.
We're gonna stop.
I have
get something out of it.
I have not put out a new episode of The Basement since last week, regretfully, because of my lingering illness. But I am, as you can see, no longer sick. So I'm just now very angry at Jacob. This is the first time I've been really mad. Like, I've been disappointed and frustrated, but I'm really mad, especially because I have 10 movies that I need to either watch, or I was like, oh, I should really rewatch this. I've only seen it once. And now I have 12 because I need to rewatch both of them right back to back in order. I know which one I think I should vote for, but I'm like, no, I got to watch them both. I just got to be totally sure. Because I feel like this is one that could need a tiebreaker. And I'm so sorry, but I'm going last. Because,
That's fine.
Oh no, I should go first. First or last, either one. Because I have thoughts.
I'm mad because we miss Uncut Gems by a week and a half. We missed the real by a week and a half. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, I want to thank everyone for understanding Patterson's the real shit.
Yes.
That
was a pleasant surprise.
I really love that movie. It's legit.
Oh, it's wonderful.
This bracket also features you guys all get your massive revenge on me when my 1 and 2 face up against each other in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
this
that it goes the way I think
go.
it's going to. My 1 and 2 movie will be facing off each other in round 2, so that's fun. I get to experience that.
You did.
I did. Taylor, where can they find you?
Here, unfortunately. This show every week. Sometimes there's some stuff that gets uploaded on the channel. You know, I got no schedule there, but there might be some stuff going up. I don't know. Keep checking the channel. Check Letterboxd. That's where you can see what I'm going through. Letterboxd is the place to be. There's nothing really to promote currently at the moment, but you know.
You guys
I have one question.
Yes.
Given the traction you had with your recent review of the Taylor Swift video, is there any chance we could get you to review random music videos in or around the 1990s, including and not including Tool? Because I would just love to see your reaction to music videos.
Listen, all you gotta do is send me the link. That's all you gotta do.
Okay.
Guys, you can find me pretty much everywhere at Jacob London, and also attempting to survive being murdered by everyone.
Survive being buried alive by all the DVDs you're going to be mailed out of anger.
Well, now that I'm a member of the Bene Gesserit, I'm just going to use the voice on you.
Yeah. Use your demon nun powers.
We are back next week on Sunday as well. We won't be on Monday anymore. We are back to Sunday nights. Until then, guys, thank you so much for this, and we will see you next week.